My bad, Hayden. Just removed you as you were talking backstage. All right, guys. This is what we're dealing with today. I need to get a new webcam. Tried some apps on my phone. Can't get that worked up. We are going to have Hayden's beautiful face, though, so that is the good news. Anyways, Hayden Winks, first time on the channel. We're here to talk some weekly winners. We're here to talk some Eliminator. We're here to hear his backstory in fantasy. Let's rip this. All right, I'm Liam Murphy. Today we have on Hayden Winks, very professional. See, I can flicker myself on, but more than that, I cannot do. Anyways, Hayden, man, how are you doing today?
Good. I feel there's more pressure because everyone's going to be looking at my face now. So, yeah, but maybe your views will go up now that your face is hidden.
I mean, you have a much more beautiful background. You have really everything better than me here. So it's for the best. Folks, I will overnight a webcam off Amazon. We are having Matthew Berry on next week, which would have been a way bigger calamity. No offense, Hayden.
Do you think he would have done the show like this?
I don't know. I think he would have, man. I think he would have been like you and just found it amusing.
Yeah.
But anyways, Hayden, first tell the people how you're doing before I get into some questions for you. We're 15 days out from the NFL season.
Yeah, so for all the underdog contests, BBM, I think, is looking really strong. Weekly winners needs a little bit of help. And then we launched this Eliminator out of nowhere, which I thought was super exciting. So, yeah, I feel very good about how everything's going on Underdog's end, and just very cool to see some change-ups to best ball. I think it was time. We had so much content. It's best ball, BBM, puppy. I like these change-ups.
Yeah, I've been pushing for the players by ADP of rounds 19 through 34. Just an absolute sickos draft where like you're having to Google like Charlie Jones is like a 20th round pick with like confidence. You're mixing in Quentin Morrison gang.
We might be able to sell 6 people on that. So that's your one issue. I have, and I've pushed this multiple times. And I think it is very easy for us to do eventually. Is just, why don't we do that, but just eliminate the top 50 in ADP? Like, we still get like massive swings, but now it's like not just sickos. But I do think like a sleepers only best ball contest would be a lot of fun.
Okay, big news. My girlfriend found a webcam, so we're going to see if I plug this one on. It's actually I have, but actually not dead.
Okay, that's something.
So let's throw this on. Great angle.
Yeah, keep it like that.
Let's get this hooked up here. Sorry, folks. All right. It's like we didn't miss anything, guys. We are
like Twitch in 2018. Like, literally anything goes. Like, you
I mean, Hayden, that's pretty much how the channel goes over here. A lot of anything does go. Honestly, this one has higher picture quality. So this is pretty massive here. Great to see you face to face. Yeah, no, I'm really excited for the Eliminator myself. And I do think the Sickos one would fill. Like, it'd have to be a small contest. But the Eliminator, really fun. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about weekly winners. We're going to talk about some data. Hayden is a great follow for anyone who does not follow him on Twitter. You know, I don't consume a ton of content nowadays, but I always do check in and catch a couple of the Hayden and Josh pods. I think you guys put out great info on the Underdog channel. Hayden, first off, man, can you tell the people how, you got into fantasy football, and just walk us through your journey over the years? Because I think, you know, as someone that's newer to Twitter, newer to fantasy football, I like to ask everyone that question when they first come on.
Yeah, so I got really lucky. I was just about to graduate from USC, and I was like just doing a bunch of sports internships, but I always like reading Roto World like every single day, obsessed with fantasy. And like I remember Silva was on the Ross Tucker podcast. This is like back in like 2017 or 2016. And he was talking about like bye weeks and how like players are struggling coming off of bye weeks. So I like pulled some data out of my ass and like just sent it to Silva like on a tweet comment. And he like he's like, you want to write a guest column on it on Roto World? And then that column turned into working part-time on college football at Roto World. And then that turned into part-time NFL and then full-time.
And what year was this?
This was like 2017.
Okay.
But I was like, I had already accepted a Chargers internship like after college. So like I only had like a couple months to kind of jam this thing in. Loved working for the Chargers for a little bit, but got old very fast, and I wanted to get back into the content game. So basically quit there and rejoined Underdog full time. And then from there, Josh left and then brought me on over at Underdog. So it's been like 4 or 5 years, like really this wouldn't have happened at all unless Silva like looked at a skill account. So
it sounds like, I asked a lot of people this question, and it sounds like Silva is like the like tethering line to like a lot of different analysts. Like I believe Daigle mentioned Silva too. I loved hearing Daigle's start in the industry. Funny you say that you worked for the Chargers before, because I studied economics in college. I ran my senior regression paper was predicting the success of wide receivers in the NFL using a regression analysis. It's like 100 pages, like, nailed it out. Had a pretty good R squared, like 0.66, something like that. My fun fact from that data set is like Antonio Brown had the worst broad jump of anyone.
Yep. There's always weird things when you add the NFL Combine, like you can really start screwing with yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it did hit on Stevie Johnson though, which like was like a late round pick. It was like 3-cone drill, and I don't remember else, but I remember thinking at the time like, oh, I'd like to work for an NFL team, but I just thought it was like so unattainable at that point of time. I graduated in 2015, but cool to hear your story.
Real quick, I have one quick note just about trying to work in the NFL. I was working on the marketing side at the Chargers, and I had like a year internship. And the whole time I was like just trying to get over to the football operations side. And I was like just mingling with them. And then like I finally like went on into like their football of operations, the president. And like I had this huge binder of like basically like trying to be PFF by myself. And like went up to him and like shot my shot and got absolutely matumboed right out of his office. And like after that, I was like, all right, I'm done. It's not going to happen. This was also the time the Chargers like one of the only NFL organizations, and actually I think probably all of American sports without an analytics team. And I was like, just hire me. It cost me 14 cents to hire me on this. Like, let me at least give this thing a try. But then I ended up doing regression for NBC Sports. So I like this job way better than what I would have done in the actual NFL.
Yeah, and you'll probably be paid more. I mean, I do think even like 2017 versus now, I think there's been like an exponential change in embracing analytics, like pushing out the dinosaurs who, like film is part of it, tape is part of it, but analytics is too. It's like, it's just kind of stupid to be like, no, it has no part in the game. And anyone who thinks that way, I think, has been pushed out by this next crop of GMs. And so you are a big research guy. You're running through a lot of data. So, I always push back on some historical research that a lot of data can be descriptive, which is very important because the fantasy market is wildly different from year to year. We'll see the quarterbacks go in different ranges. Like in BBM 1 days, one wide receiver went in the first round. The rest were running backs. That was Michael Thomas. That was the year like Josh Jacobs, Nick Chubb, Kenyon Drake were like RB. They're all first round running backs. So wildly different landscape to like compare anything historical that year to this year. But obviously there is some data that is predictive. I always like that some of my gut takes and just like logical takes align with the data. For example, I'm a big elite quarterback guy. It seems like you are too. It just logically makes sense to me that on a half-point PPR site, the other positions contribute a less of a percent to your total roster compared to a full point PPR site. So if you could just top down walk us through any of the data that you found most predictive rather than descriptive, I don't know, just walk us through a couple things there that maybe the people aren't thinking about.
So I think the historical data that's going to apply best is the idea of this diminishing returns at each position. While like Josh Jacobs being drafted in round 8 like last year and being the guy you need, like maybe there's a running back in round 5 of the guy that you need. So like the changes in like by round are going to like marginally move. But I do think the diminishing returns on your roster side, like going back to like Leone's manifesto, putting that curve on it that we like obsess over like during the NFL draft trades, I do think diminishing returns is going to be sticky. So that's a lot of my focus. And then I also looking at like NFL trends. I think that Rich Rebar does a good job of this. And to me, like going back to the elite quarterbacks, I think there's a massive difference between looking at the data from like the last 2 years and moving forward versus we dealt with in the 2010s when there just wasn't as many elite quarterbacks that were also rushing like what we're seeing right now. So I think it does matter, but really like I'm looking at projections, doing my rankings, and I'm like looking at the entire position and then making my rankings adjustments. But like when I'm actually drafting, I'm obsessed with like the diminishing returns of each position because I do think that we can learn some things from that. So it depends. Like I think that getting your hand in the dirt and being with the data and stuff is going to help your takes, even if it is a little bit descriptive. But like I'm always looking at ADP and the differences year over year, and I'm like obsessed with that as well. So I don't want to say it's only descriptive. I don't want to say everything's predictive as well. But for the elite quarterbacks, I do think that is a trend that Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Fields, Lamar Jackson, like these guys are aliens. Like these guys can run and pass like crazy. We haven't seen that in the NFL ever. So I think, and all these guys are in the primes of their career.
Thank you for ever pointed out that my microphone was being picked up by the webcam. Am I sounding different to you now, Hayden?
You sound good. You sound good now.
Okay, good. You brought up Josh Jacobs, and I think this is a great point to point out how like Josh Jacobs being present in the 8th round of fantasy drafts and all the first round and second round running backs failing, like that is something that is not going to happen year over year, right? So like the Josh Jacobs effect, anyone who's doing historical research needs to realize like it's not just hitting Josh Jacobs, it's also the fact that Jonathan Taylor failed and like a bunch of these other guys failed. And if that doesn't happen, it's not as powerful hitting on that Josh Jacobs. Not to mention like we're not guaranteed to get a Josh Jacobs year over year.
Oh,
like,
of course not. Not even close.
Like we have seen James Conner, Leonard Fournette of years past. There are some guys I like in the mid-range. Charbonnet, like Swift is in that, like Swift is a very fragile player DeAndre Swift, where he's either league winner, like fall into the 8th round because of Kenneth Gainwell week 1 preseason, or he is behind Gainwell. He is behind Penny. It is a very weird year in the fantasy market where not only do we have all these like top running back holdouts present, but we also have the market in some ways getting sharper, in my opinion, pushing up the wide receivers because, like a lot of these round 2, round 3 running backs could be smashes, right? Like 20 point per game guys. I want to talk about some of those running backs because like I'm not out on Ramondre like others. ETN is someone I don't draft as much, but I definitely see the league winning upside with him as well. But just the fact that you have to start 3 wide receivers kind of pushes that tier break to me where it's like, I don't want to be drafting anyone in like the Romeo Dubs range of drafts.
Yeah.
Like
my thing with the wide receivers is since we obsess over them so much and that we're getting better and better at just doing projections and all that, it's going to be very hard to find late round wide receivers that really pop off. So like I was just looking at the last 2 years, like who's getting the spike weeks at those positions. And it's like, I forget the exact number. It was like 75% of the spike weeks come from the current like top 36 wide receivers in ADP. So it's like hard. That's like way more than the other positions. So like, to me, I understand why wide receivers get priced up. I don't think that we necessarily need to have as many good wide receivers as what the market is saying. So like my whole strategy this year has been get in, get out. Like I don't want to have my 4th and 5th wide receiver be total trash. I don't necessarily need my 4th and 5th wide receivers to be absolute superstars either. So my whole thing is just keep making sure you're not betting against your first couple picks. So I'm kind of like middling this. Like, I think that having 4 wide receivers by round 7 is fine. But if like my 4th one's Jordan Addison and then my 5th one's Juju Smith-Schuster, like that's still fine with me because I want to make sure I have like a good 3rd running back, because to me, they just project really well. And like you said, with the elite quarterbacks, I'm kind of going in that direction a little bit. So it really just depends. And like early on in the offseason, I was hammering late round tight ends. Well, now that some of my favorite guys are like now like round 14 guys, now that makes the Kyle Pitts at 80th overall projection look a little bit better, because I think like the opportunity cost across the entire position has changed a little bit. So my stance is kind of maneuver throughout the offseason.
And I think anyone drafting over the course of an offseason should change in some ways. That was a big takeaway of me, just kind of like, I'm a big like look at my teams during the season. Like I do look week to week, just kind of like top down view. I look at teams I draft this week and or this offseason every couple of weeks too. Just kind of like late at night, laying in bed, checking through some teams. And that was my big takeaway from BBM2, is that I was drafting way too many wide receivers. And so BBM3 and on, I'll do a lot more 6 wide receiver builds with because it's a quality position, not a quantity position to me, right? So I'll start 6 wide receivers and be done. I'll start 5 and be done sometimes. Like I do think some 5 wide receiver builds, if you get the right group of 5, like Jefferson, Ridley, T. Higgins, Mike Williams, Christian Watson, like you could just stop at 5 there. Yeah, you're done.
I think we've overrated the variance of wide receivers. And yes, there is week to week variance at the position, but people underestimate like how awful like the wide receiver 36 or 48 is on the week. Like even in like your, like, let's take T. Higgins example. T. Higgins, like even on his like kind of bad weeks, is still in your starting lineup. Like he's usually getting like 10, 12 points on even on his bad games. And I think we're pretending that T. Higgins either 25 points or 5 points. Like reality is like most games he's like 10 to 16. Like, and those are still in your lineup. So I think we've overestimated initially. Like back in the day, it was like draft 10, 12 wide receivers, like variance. Really the position with the variance is all the tight ends. It's not the wide receivers. Like your good wide receivers stay good the entire year. So like just you drafted at 3 of them by round 5, like assume that they're good, because if they're not good, your team's pretty screwed.
There are, on the same token, there are some teams where the wide receiver rotation is just so ambiguous that they are the late round wide receivers I want to be hitting. So the Giants guys, right? Like Darius Slayton legitimately could be the wide receiver 1 there. And is not even drafted at 100% clip.
Patriots too.
All the Chiefs guys, Patriots, I'm really like a Ramondre and like no one else.
One of them is going to do well. I promise you. One of them will do well.
Yeah, I mean, or maybe they'll all get like 600 yards, and it's like they're doing well, but you need the Bills slot wide receiver, where the market pretty much just had that wrong, that it was Khalil Shakir. I think that's been like pretty clear. Like everything the Bills have told us has been like they signed Cole Beasley and John Brown before playoff game rather than play Shakir. They brought in Deontay Hardy and Trent Sherfield, which are like huge upgrades over Jake Kumaro and gang. Deontay Hardy also was like an electric wide receiver with the Saints. Now, how much, Kincaid's probably going to eat a lot of that, so I understand why it goes mostly undrafted, but there are wide receivers I want to be buying. And then like the rookie wide receivers. So guys like Josh Downs, Michael Wilson, the Panthers guy, Mingo, like these are the late round wide receivers I want to be buying when I do go maybe a hyper fragile build or whatnot.
For those tracking at home, that's 838 when Liam's first Kincaid reference. So everyone hit the lower on that one.
Let's talk about real quick, just your vibe here on the total points winner on Underdog. Would you take a team will the total points champion have one of Josh Allen, Mahomes, Hurts, Lamar, or will you take the field?
So those are the top 5 quarterbacks.
Top 4. Either it's the top 4 is the total points champion is going to have one of those guys, or it's going to have Herbert, Fields, and Burrow and down.
If you included Herbert, I would for sure take it, because I do think like the Herbert stat could be pretty sick, because you'd be bringing along a couple of them. I think I would still take the elite ones. we've gotten so good at projecting these quarterbacks, and I think you can build a very stacked team going that route. I do think it is viable, kind of like the Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson kind of build. Like I do mix those guys in a little bit now. But yeah, I think like Lamar, Herbert, I think Jalen Hurts, like I think these guys could have ridiculous seasons this year.
I mean, Hurts could go
Crazy.
Absolutely insane, like having to play a fourth quarter this year,
Yeah,
you know, and their defense is looking a little bit worse in the secondary, which is just like good for the fantasy offense.
Yeah, I just looked it up. Last year, Jalen Hurts was the 6th best fantasy points per game season of all time. And they didn't play the fourth quarter. 6th best all time. And he's getting better. Like we haven't seen the best of Jalen Hurts yet. He's still in development.
This is also the best offense of Josh Allen's career, like unquestionably to me, both with the O-line, you know, like there's tackle concerns and then the pass weapons. Mahomes is the one I'm worried about. I
only have like 4 or 5% of Mahomes, and I'm an early quarterback guy. I struggle on like how to stack him, and I also think there's fragility in this. Like he's not going to completely bust, in my opinion. Well, maybe he could bust if like the other elite guys go like absolute.
Like what if Kelsey gets hurt though? Like what happens?
That's right. So what I have been doing when I do mix. If I am drafting a wide receiver on the Chiefs, I kind of like double dip on them just in case Kelsey gets hurt. Patrick Mahomes is not going to be the quarterback that you need most likely in that scenario, but you can bring like all of a sudden you remove Kelsey's targets, and that's how Kadarius and MVS could get there. So I do mix in some of those kind of unique teams, but Mahomes of the elite ones, I don't like his price tag as much. I like going Josh Allen with Gabe Davis. I like going AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts. And I certainly like Lamar with pick your favorite wide receiver. And then I still like Big Mike Williams and Justin Herbert at like the 4 or 5 turn.
Yeah, I love that pairing, especially when you get Herbert all the way wrapped around in the 5th. If you take Mike in the 4th, like I'm a little bit worried on Keenan on a half-point PPR site compared to Mike, who
was way later. Like that's like a 7-8 pick difference. Like I think that's like a dramatically different pick, and you like for sure know you're going to be able to get Justin Herbert with Mike Williams. Like if you draft Keenan Allen and like can't get Herbert, like I'm not sure if I love that necessarily.
I do build some teams for like with kind of like the regular season prize in mind, because obviously if you're building a team that can win the regular season, you're really just trying to build a team that can score a lot of points each week, which should carry over to the playoffs as well, right?
Yes.
I also build teams that I just think are like really weird and not being built by the field just for playoff advancement reasons, trying to make it easier on myself to advance through a playoff pod, and differentiating myself in the 460 person final of BBM 4. How about the tight end for the regular season champion? Do you think the winner historically an elite tight end has been on the total points champion across the sites? Do you think the winner will have one of Kelsey, Andrews, Hawkinson, and I'll say Waller as the tight end 4? Or would you take
the field
4 late, 2 middle, 3 late?
I can see it being late round tight end, but this is also one where, and I should have brought this up earlier, talking about the historical data. I don't think we have applied who's doing the types of drafts into like the advance rates on things. Like the 0 RB drafters are also the people that are like grinding the news, and they might just like have better player takes. So like there could be like a little bit of a difference on like some of the advance rates just based off of like how sharp the person actually doing those things are.
For sure. Right.
So I do think like a lot of like the late round tight end people this year, I think that is a little bit of a sharper crowd because it feels so unnatural to like not have a position like until like round 13. But those people like they might have better player takes from rounds 1 through 10. And it could just be because of that. But really for me, the late round
it's like the Eno Benjamin effect from years ago.
Exactly.
Where like Eno Benjamin scored 0 points. And this is why I've said multiple times, like I consume content because I kind of want to know what the plugged in crowd is doing. And if it's like me and the mouth breathers are drafting elite quarterback and elite tight end, it's like, I think I can build the best team out of the mouth breathers versus the content consumers.
That is true. And I wrote a column, I think it was last offseason, about like the types of running backs the robust RB drafters are versus the 0 RB drafters. And you can just like tell like the hive mind effect. And I do think there is an edge. Like, okay, like for example, on weekly winners, I like drafting Josh Allen without Steph Diggs or Joe Burrow without one of the receivers, because I think people are overstacking these elite teams. Like, I want to single stack them. So like, if it is true that Josh Allen's the guy that you need in weekly winners, and I think that most people are drafting Gabe Davis and Steph Diggs, I would rather single stack that and like take advantage of like, okay, these are the people that are drafting Josh Allen. I just don't think they're drafting good Josh Allen teams for the format. So I've been like leaning into that. I'm like, okay, I think that this guy might be the guy you need, but I think a lot of people that are doing this are probably drafting that player in the wrong type of builds. I do think there is something to like lean into that.
And like, you know, you can listen to a couple different content providers and hear like, I think it's tough to get an elite quarterback. Like that to me already is like, well, I already think logically that makes sense personally. And I think it just puts a little bit more stress on you to hit nuts at the other position, right? Like if you're going to take a second round quarterback, a third round quarterback, all right, so you got to find a late round running back dart. No big deal. I think I'm going to do that better than the average person anyways.
Yeah.
And then like when I make a playoff team, I have a super team because like you have Daniel Jones and I have Josh Allen, and I like Daniel Jones. Like I built some teams like that as well, but you know, they don't have the floor ceiling combo of an Allen, of a Hurts, of a Lamar. All right, let's jump into weekly winners unless you have anything to say on that subject. As you can tell, we're not too structured here. We're just kind of firing off takes. What have you found from weekly winners? I listened to the pod you and Dooley did. Something I messaged Dooley is I think anything looking at the top 50 teams, like already it's a little results oriented, but you need to capture, to me, if you truly want to be results oriented, is like, what about the Cooper Kupp teams that would have been a top 50 team if they had Kupp? You know what I mean? Like you're not capturing that really well-built team that just lost the first round pick.
Right.
So I don't know what the solution is there, whether you just like supplant Jefferson's points onto him, or you just like give him his point average and be like, if he didn't lose X player, and of course, like you're losing players all over the place, so it makes it hard, but like really like the impact of losing like a first, second round pick on an otherwise top 50 team, you know?
Yeah, it's hard. That podcast was fun because we knew going into this that like we're trying to apply data, but like it's definitely not the best data work that you can kind of do. I took the bigger sample. I think it was like the top 1% of teams or top 3% of teams. I forget what it was. I wrote about it. And just so I can take away a little bit of the variance with that type of thing. But also noting that like you need, like there's a big difference between like a top 1 percentile team and like actually winning that. And there could be some big differences within that. But really, like, to me, studying the spike weeks is like the key part of that game. Like I think just how teammates correlate on these spike weeks matters a ton, and like which players have that in their range of outcomes. And then also the fragility of the elite players, and then like what that means. Like, for example, with the tight ends, like no doubt George Kittle can just shove it all on me this entire year. But if you look at the top tight ends right now, I think all of them are like not in the prime of their careers. Like Travis Kelce had the best season of all time, but he is also 34. Darren Waller is looking great right now, has been a fantastic pick so far. Also 31. George Kittle dealing with a groin injury, 30 years old. Like TJ Hawkinson has never been like this level of an elite guy. Mark Andrews has never had this much target competition. Like, to me, there's a position where it's like all of the elite players at the position kind of have mid seasons. Like, to me, it's for sure the position that has the highest chances of all of them sort of busting, to me, would be tight end. I don't see like the top 6 quarterbacks all busting. Like, that to me is just like not going to happen. Prime of their careers, we have a sample size of 700 dropbacks on these guys at least. So like we know who these guys are now.
I'm always team elite tight end. Like I do build some late round tight ends, you know, like obviously I liked Musgrave from the get-go. I liked Mayer. I think Knox is too cheap. I like Juwan a lot until they signed like Foster, and then Taysom was there, and then Jimmy Graham, like walked into traffic, and it seems like it is the Juwan show again.
So that's what they're saying at New Orleans football, and like they know ball. Yeah,
and you know, then there's the mid-range guys who it's like the Ingram, Kincaid, Freiermuth. I could see a mix of that being really strong. I personally am really still high on TJ Hawkinson. I don't understand why he's gone from a 3-4 pick to basically a 5-6 pick.
Yeah.
I've been of the logic that hit the ground running with the Vikings. Kirk's always been a tight end guy. I do think that is like a little bit predictive. Like Dak's kind of a tight end guy. And he's shown an elite ceiling. And there's no I like Addison too, but I don't know. I think the meta of the NFL with this cover 2, you're going to see a lot of teams utilizing the tight end to beat that. And that's why Kincaid was drafted high. That's why Musgrave was drafted high. That's why all these guys were drafted high, kind of as a counterpunch to cover 2.
I think that totally checks out. We saw it on a couple of these preseason games. Guys working over the seam, making some good, dope catches. That's what the Freiermuth one was on that touchdown. So I think there is something to that. I think of the elite ones, the guys I mix in a little bit is Mark Andrews and TJ Hawkinson. I don't draft Kelsey basically at all.
I don't draft Kelsey at all either,
which terrifies me. I was on the same thing last year, and that didn't work out. But there was enough of the late round guys that did enough for me, like Evan Ingram types, that I managed to hang in there. David Njoku, same thing. So I don't know. I think I'm significant. I don't think I nail everything. I think I'm significantly better than the market on nailing these late round tight ends because I obsess over it. So early in the off season, I think it's hard for me to get on the elite tight ends because I think I just know the late round tight ends way better. People fall for the Dulcich and Chigokwanko types way too much. And
Njoku was one of the worst price guys from an advance rate perspective to me, where he was just a 9th, 10th round pick. And I was just from a playoff pod advancing a low end guy, I think he's good for that. But I thought he was a really bad pick from a score the most points over the course of the season perspective.
For this year?
Yeah.
I hadn't been drafting him too much, though. If I didn't get one of the elite quarterbacks, I was mixing in Deshaun Watson and panic buttoning, how am I going to fix this if I didn't draft Amari Cooper? And I would rather go Njoku than Elijah Moore straight up. But yeah, I just don't love that tier. Or I hated that tier a while ago. I'm a little bit more open to it now that some of the guys go late, but I don't know. I think Ferguson and Musgrave and those guys are just going to be borderline tight end ones. They have every opportunity to do so. So yeah,
I'm still a little worried about no one's talking about Luke Schoonmaker, who was on the NFI list. I probably have the most Luke Schoonmaker drafted, probably a dead roster spot, but 2nd round pick. I kind of just listen to NFL teams in that way. And
are you fading Ingram for Brendan Strange, or do you think there's a big talent difference between Ingram and Ferguson?
I think Ingram getting that huge contract and everything, it's no worries at all. And he's just a clear pass catcher, where I think I draft Ferguson with confidence too, but I think it's a 15% chance that Luke Schoonmaker is getting in there, maybe after the bye week or whatever, if it takes some time. Really depends how his foot goes from plantar fasciitis, which can be quite crippling.
He just missed this. That hasn't been a short term. That's been this entire offseason. Dak Prescott might not even know who he is.
Yeah. I did see some report, I think, today on him. Let's just bring up a board here to talk about some players for the visual crowd like me. This is a draft I did last night. Not really important. But
what format is this?
This was a BBM 4.
Okay.
We're going to jump into weekly winners and then eliminator. And if we have time, I'll jump in an eliminator draft. And if Hayden needs to run, no worries during that. So I went Debo here to get unique, but not really. We're just bringing up the players. Andrews is tough because I still think the opportunity cost of an Andrews versus a Hawkinson is pretty steep. And then you brought up the target competition. It's kind of hard to make the math work of is Andrews going to smash and OBJ and Bateman and Lamar's going to take some from running and Zay Flowers. So am I overthinking? I draft some Andrews. I think it's a smash to go 3-4 Lamar Andrews. I do some 2-3 Lamar Andrews just to get unique, and then it's can Andrews average more points than T Higgins? Absolutely. But you do need to start 3 wide receivers every single week and only 1 tight end, which you can kind of make up with volume, in my opinion, on an Andrews. So am I overthinking the Andrews opportunity cost, or is he a little steep in your opinion? And how do we make all the math work for the Ravens, who in some ways could be this year's Eagles, and in other ways it's like Lamar is disappointed before from a passing perspective.
Sure. Yeah, I would just rather have Lamar Jackson. If Mark Andrews is worth a third-round pick, things are also going very well for Lamar Jackson, and you can stack it in other ways. Yeah, and maybe it's unique to have Lamar Jackson without Mark Andrews and then ping-pong the tight end position and like match Mark Andrews' 16-point game with Tyler Higbee's 16-point game, and then all of a sudden you have a third-round pick to utilize there. So, yeah, this is like one where it's like, I just want the elite quarterback. If Mark Andrews is getting there, I know for a fact Lamar Jackson's getting there, and I can build a sweet team with Lamar Jackson there. So it's always hard because like you have to draft Mark Andrews before Lamar Jackson to set up the stack, like so the odds are in your favor. But like if you were just like, all right, which third round player would you rather have? Like to me, it's like not even a question to be Lamar.
Yeah, and like I think it's even justifiable to have Lamar as your QB3 over Mahomes.
I have
like,
a quarterback too.
Your quarterback.
I have Hurts one, kind of in his own tier, and then Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and then Mahomes right after him. And that's no shade at Josh Allen. I draft Josh Allen all the time. It's just Lamar Jackson's ceiling is out of control.
His weekly ceiling is out of control, where he can like just go for 50 through running it. His floor is obviously lower. Way lower. And it's like, I don't know, like the Bills defense could regress in some ways too, and they could kind of get the Eagles effect where it's like a lot of their defenders are old as hell. You know, like Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde.
Poyer looked pretty slow on that touchdown run.
Yeah,
I was like, is Jalen Warren really fast or is Poyer cooked?
Yeah, like that, you know, and I think it's important for people out there to think through which quarterbacks are being pulled up for stacking reasons, which guys like that qualify to me are Mahomes. Tua is a pretty obvious one where it's like, I don't think Tua is that differently than Daniel Jones, Dak, Geno, Richardson. Like, yeah, I do think Tua has a good chance to have a bunch of 30-point weeks, but he's mostly being pulled up just to align with Waddle and Tyreek.
Especially in weekly winners. Like that's like the indicator if the quarterback's getting way pulled up in weekly winners, that's how you know it's because of theoretical correlation upside and not like based on like their actual projection.
All right, vibe check. Calvin Ridley, 2-3 turn.
I'm there. I've been ranking him there the whole time. He's so much better than Christian Kirk and these other jabronis. Like Calvin Ridley, when he's ready to go, he's ready to go. Like now, like is he a screaming value? No. Like I was doing a bold prediction show with Josh just yesterday, and like previously it was gonna be that Calvin Ridley is gonna be like a top 5 fantasy wide receiver, but like at this point, like everyone kind of knows like that's a thing. Yeah. People were complaining that his like why is his ADP going up? It's like because we didn't know if he was actually gonna be good, and like the fact that the training camp reports are good and we are watching him win is like giving me more confidence. So of course his ADP should go up. I don't know why people were complaining about that.
No, he to me was a 100% click guy at 3-4, like literally every single time. I would go Calvin and then Debo.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, like do I prefer an alpha potential wide receiver 1 in offense who I think could pass for 5,000 like to 4,500 yards versus a good wide receiver 2 in Waddle and Smith and like Olave? That team has such an easy schedule. They could just like win a bunch of 20-point games. It's like, yeah.
And he's on the other side of the board. It would be a lot different if he was like a early round 4 guy. Now he's a late round 3 guy. And you're like, well, the board, you just like 2v2 flipped and like didn't matter. But like going from late 3rd to early 3rd is like you've now flipped the board on its head.
Yeah, and he could be around 1-2 guy next year is what I've been saying.
Sure. Oh yeah.
All right, let's get into. We always need to talk about these running backs before we jump into this minutia strategy. Taylor was like a never draft guy at 1-2 for me.
Yep.
I've been mixing him in a little bit, like just like 3% pretty much. I still don't want him. Him getting traded is like
that's scary.
Could be rough for me where it's like I was so right, but fuck, he landed on the Chiefs or the Eagles or something like that. Yeah. So let's talk about Taylor. Let's talk about Jacobs. Let's talk about Ramondre. Let's talk about ETN and Gibbs on a half-point PPR side. I think we also need to talk about.
The Gibbs stuff doesn't make sense. Like, let's just be honest here. Like, it's just he would be an outlier for a running back his size. Like, even if you're accounting for his draft capital, it would still be very hard for him as a rookie to pay off this ADP. Like, I understand it's the perfect landing spot for him. Like, they want him. They throw the ball to the running backs. Goff is a running back guy. Like, all makes sense to me. he also was not a volume guy in college. And like all of the other small guys that got there, your Christian McCaffrey guys, handled the rock like crazy in college. Jahmyr Gibbs did not. So I think you're trying to find you're threading the needle here in ways that I don't agree with. Full PPR redraft, 4th round. Sure, this is not for me. I'd just rather hope that Josh Jacobs just has a season that he had last year. Same thing with Ramondre Stevenson. As for Jonathan Taylor, I still have him ranked after like 29th overall, like where he went here. But I also, it's weird for me because I really don't like him on the Colts because I don't think he'll play through injuries and all that.
He's like expensive Miles Sanders to me.
Exactly. The role's not good. And I also think the contract issues can make him not want to play. And if he gets traded, that means the team's most likely is paying him. He's most likely to be ready and will be out there, and the offense will likely be better. But I also think the odds of him getting traded are higher than what the people want to admit. So I'm really struggling with him. I think at this point, like late 3rd, I like him, but I would still rather have Josh Jacobs and Ramondre straight up.
Yeah, for just kind of like the safety, and they have like similar ceilings. Gibbs is a guy who like I'll have some of, not at this price, always here, because he probably has a high weekly ceiling, even if he is a negative advance rate guy. Like, can he score 2 touchdowns, especially correlated with Goff? Like, absolutely.
Sure.
But
everyone can. Like that's my problem with like these arguments.
Yeah.
Like with going to A-Chain real quick, it's like, well, A-Chain could be in round 10 look really good. I'm like, name a player in round 10 that also can't project really well in week 16, 17. Like they all can. Like that's the point.
Romeo Dobbs.
Yeah, maybe Romeo Dobbs, but don't draft a wide receiver at that point. Like look at all the other running. You can't tell me that like Jamal Williams and Alvin Kamara misses times that he can't project well. Like of course all of these guys can.
Yeah, but the 12th overall pick on a team with an elite O-line is kind of the point. He has some contingent upside probably if Montgomery, who's like no spring chicken, got hurt too. Ramondre and Jacobs, I think Zeke landing on the Patriots is like a great signing for Ramondre.
That's totally fine.
Pretty much the only Patriot I draft with any confidence other than like some late round Hunter Henry and like a very rare Devontae Parker share. But I, hate the matchup against Buffalo week 17. I still think Ramondre is going to catch a lot of passes. I don't think he's going to give up every goal line carry to Zeke, who could just be done, right?
Yeah.
Like, so talk to me about Ramondre versus Jacobs. Someone said that Jacobs was going to report, and then he tweeted out, this is fake news.
Right.
I think Gretsch said that like Jacobs is a guy who like might like stick to his like moral fiber, which is like not what I want to hear. Like I want the Saquon. I want the dude who's going to like tuck his tail between his legs and be like, sure, give me $25K more and I'll sign.
Does Gretsch know Jacobs personally? Like,
I don't know. It could have not been. Yeah. It could have not been him either, but someone said something like that.
Yeah, well, with Jacobs, like to me, the precedent is set because Saquon, like the Raiders are just gonna be like, here's $1 million in incentives, like go earn it, and like that'll be it. So he's not getting fined because he hasn't signed his tag. There's no point of him learning this offense. It's the same offense, even though the quarterback's changed. He doesn't need to have chemistry with freaking Jimmy G. Yeah, he'll be ready to go in week 1. I'm pretty sure. So. And also, we're playing for upside here. Like, if he misses 2 games because of a holdout, like who gives a shit? Like, you want Josh Jacobs to just do what he did last year. Like, if Josh Jacobs did 85% of what he did last year, he's a smash in round 3. So
the only thing I'm worried about with all these holdout running backs is like, if they get nicked up, are they going to play through that, or are they going to stick it to the man?
For sure, like that is a problem. Like for Jacobs, especially on a team that could be eliminated. Yeah, but he's also playing for a contract. Like that certainly matters. And like, would that hurt his free agency if like he was banged up? Like I think that would be used against him when he's finally able to negotiate a long-term contract. So
Ramondre versus ETN. I've been drafting a lot more Ramondre because I kind of view like Ramondre is competing against Devontae Parker and, other dust balls for targets. Whereas like, I really want to play the Jags through the passing game. But I still think ETN, home run hitter, not a lock that he's going to give up all the goal line usage. How have you been viewing ETN? And let me let my cat out real quick while you answer that.
Yeah, all good. With Ramondre, I thought the Zeke signing was more about Pierre Strong and Kevin Harris and the lack of depth that they had more so than a thing on Ramondre Stevenson. I haven't heard any of the beat reporters or the coaching staff like talk shit on Ramondre Stevenson. They're like, oh, we don't want him toting the rock as much as he did last year, which is like totally reasonable. ETN, like before they made these offseason moves, were like, we don't like ETN having this exact role, like basically said that straight up and then acted on that. I think it's a little bit different. So I think that ETN rug pull odds are definitely higher than Ramondre Stevenson. Yeah, and Ramondre is way bigger, and I just like bigger running backs. Like,
yeah, the dude is like LeGarrette Blount, but like faster.
We keep pretending in the offseason that like being big is like not a massive advantage when you're being tackled by other 300-pound men the entire year. Like, yeah.
Last range of running backs I want to talk on before we move into the weekly winners that Kitchen and I drafted yesterday. We can sauce that team. Ken Walker's been one I'm struggling with, where he is a home run hitter. Like, I do think he could be a league winner if Zach Charbonnet was not there. We don't even have to guess where he'd be valued in fantasy. He was valued at the 2-3 turn. I draft some of him. I draft some of him with Charbonnet. How have you been viewing Ken Walker? And then I am with you guys about like, this is the range I generally want to be hitting running back. This like J.K. Dobbins through Miles Sanders tier, where it's like, I'm big on Pierce. I'm big on Dobbins. I'm big on Cook. I'm warming to Javonte. Would not say I'm big on him. I draft Montgomery. I draft Connor, although like I kind of packed my bags at ADP 100. I draft Swift, who I'm like really warming again to.
Same.
League winner. I draft some Miles Sanders. Cam Akers, I'm worried about.
Yes.
I do think in some ways he could be Josh Jacobs. In other ways, I think Kyron Williams is going to like take a lot of third down work.
Yeah.
And like he's like habitually fighting with McVay. So talk to me about Walker. Talk to me about these running backs I just listed as well.
I love this tier versus the wide receiver projection straight up. Like if you're telling me like who's competing for your flex, like I would rather have these running backs than these wide receivers competing for my flex spot in half PPR. But it also is like the other reason why I'm out on like ETN and Najee and those guys in the 4th round is like, I think there's a pretty big difference between like Zay Flowers and Mike Williams in round 4 and round 7. I can be sold that Miles Sanders straight up projects better than Travis Etienne. Sanders and Pierce to me are the ones that like, and David Montgomery are the ones that like stick out where like they are the guys. Like I think that David Montgomery has a massive role. They paid him a bunch of money. He also has the most contingent upside of this entire list of running backs. Like if Jahmyr Gibbs wasn't on the team, like we wouldn't rank David Montgomery because everyone hates him that high, but he would in the box scores shove it just like James Conner was last year down the stretch.
He'd be like ahead of Madison, right? Like he'd probably be like
way higher. Why not? They were Jamal Williams and Swift were top 20 guys last year. Both of them. Like he would be a 2nd round pick.
If it was like him and Justin Jackson, yeah, I guess so.
We wouldn't draft him there because nobody wants to admit it. But
Justin Jackson would be like a 10th round pick though. People would just be like, I'm gonna play it that way.
Big Reynolds, no matter what. But yeah, to me, Miles Sanders, you don't get rug pulled after the contract that he signed. Massive deal. The rest of the skill group is dog shit. They think Miles Sanders.
A little bit of O-line concerns there. It's like hard to say from Hard Knocks.
For sure. No, I agree that there's some O-line concerns there. But Dameon Pierce, I think like 3rd down work for him. Like he's going to get this. He's going to be.
I think he's going to be on the total points champion for sure.
Smash. Yeah. Like to me, I have Pierce as my running back 12 in my rankings. I moved him way up. Like he was like the running back 15 last year without 3rd downs on the shitty offense. Like now he has more goal line opportunities and he's going to catch passes and the Texans might be better. Like, what am I missing here? And every single time I watch Devin Singletary, I think he looks worse and worse and worse. Like this preseason has not been good for him, and he was not good. The NFL didn't think he was good. Like to me, Dameon Pierce is like their best player right now in their eyes.
What about Walker?
I don't know what to do with them. I love Kenneth Walker as a player. I also love Charbonnet.
He's kind of like a cheaper ETN, where it's like he's still gonna be this home run hitter, but like the offense might be so good they don't need that as much. You know,
yeah.
where it's like,
it's a good balance though. Like you don't want Geno Smith like dropping back probably that much, though they did do it last year. Yeah, I think Kenneth Walker and Travis Etienne's a Spider-Man meme. Like what exactly is the difference here? So I don't draft. I'd rather wait for Kenneth Walker in round 5. So, but I love Charbonnet at cost. Like Charbonnet could be this year's James Conner plug-in, whoever.
Yeah, he's my I have a huge bag on him.
Yeah.
Do you think Walker seeds goal line work to Charbonnet?
I think it's possible. I think the most likely outcome it would be Kenneth Walker. I thought he got dragged this offseason for reasons that were kind of unfair. Like the Seahawks offensive line, like we kept touting that they're like, oh, it's actually a good offensive line. It was like, no, they had rookies that were like playing better than the draft capital. They were still a shitty offensive line. Like he was getting blown up constantly, and they did fix that. You should expect the offensive line to look a little bit better. And also Kenneth Walker in the second year could look better and have better vision like this. I don't know why, like just because he doesn't catch passes, now we have to pretend that Kenneth Walker's finished. Like, get out of here.
Let's just talk about Javonte and James Cook before we move on. Cook is getting steamed up to like the 5-6 in some places.
I'm nervous about this one because I have not been drafting him at all.
I packed my bags. I started the offseason wanting way more Damian Harris because I just thought, like you, Damian Harris is like way better than Devin Singletary. And then I was just hearing the like 3-down bud, like he's like going coast to coast, a 3rd down back. So I really packed my bags at 9-10. I still take some 7-8, 8-9, definitely taking him there. I think he fits the bill as a spike week guy, even if his like week to week floor is questionable. So like, you know, to me, it's like people can't be out on Kincaid and out on James Cook and, you know, like, and out on Gabe Davis. Like we're just pretending like the Bills are not going to score a lot of points, you know?
Yeah.
And then Javonte, who I drafted like 0, like after getting Will Fuller and Rob Gronkowski last year, I was like, all right, I'm not drafting the Camaras. I'm not taking the Javantes. I'm not taking the free agent running backs, Fournette, Zeke, Cook, like a little bit of Cook, but mostly no, just because I want to wait and see it, and they probably won't get that expensive. So talk to me about Cook. Talk to me about Javonte.
Javonte, awesome story. Going to be subbed out on every 3rd down. I think that's going to work against him. I think the Broncos might be just finished with Russ. So if people want to steam him up, I just will look at the historical data on these multi-ligament ACL tears. Awesome that he's out there. Also a little bit scary that they are like rushing him back for no reason after what just happened.
Why would he want that? Like,
I don't understand this one. So like if Javonte Williams beats me, like honestly amazing for him, but like I'm okay with that. James Cook is just like comes down to the size thing. Like I think Josh said that the Bills list James Cook as 190 pounds. He like weighed in at the combine at 199 pounds. Now they list him on their website at 190. Like, dude, like look at the data on 190 pound fantasy running backs and half PPR. It's like not great, but it does scare me because like he is explosive. They seem like they're trying to make him a thing. And
the Bills had like league worst guard play last year, which they upgraded significantly.
Yes. So he can be, it's one of these guys. I can't be on everybody that has upside. Like there's a lot of people in this range that have upside. He's the guy I have not drafted at all. It scares me. He can easily burn me this year, but also like if like as a player archetype, I'm way underweight on players that are 195 pounds at running back. Like I'm okay with that. Like a couple of these guys will beat me over time, but like for the most part, we keep overrate or underestimating like how good like David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs, James Conner, Leonard Fournette, the big slow guys that catch passes, like that's the archetype that you want because everybody wants to sort by 40-yard dash time.
With Javonte, like, you know, it's hard to get that like 12 target game. Like he got like 12 targets week 1 last year and then got 5 in a meaningless preseason game. So I'm not going to have a big bag on him. I'm mostly going to fade him. I am a little bit worried he's just going to get like 20 targets, but I also think Russ is like drawn real live to get benched.
And Russ is not a running back check down guy either. And I don't think Sean Payton, maybe Sean Payton like just like forces it like by calling screens and not like check downs. But if that if I beat because Sean Payton's calling fucking screens to Javonte Williams, like, all right, on to next year, I can sleep.
Yeah. And you can get teed up on a screen if you're not fully healthy. Cook, I think he just like fits the bill as a best ball guy where it's like, he's going to have some 40-yard runs. He got a carry inside the 10-yard line in that preseason game.
Yeah.
Again, the O-line getting better. If there is weather concerns later in the season, like the running back 2 and 3 in Buffalo is really hard to say, but let's jump into weekly winners here. We've gone on enough about the board. So Kitchen and I drafted this weekly winners yesterday. Why isn't this showing? Where is this?
I think it's on another tab.
Okay, here we go. So first off, before we jump into our team and everything, let's just talk top down. What are some adjustments you think people should do towards weekly winners? Floor is yours.
Anybody like I think the running backs get a jump up, even though their ADP has sunk because like the injury risk and the in-game bench risk, or like over time they get bench risk, like doesn't matter nearly as much here because we're not trying to advance or play for later in the season. Like you can build a good team that like Derrick Henry stays healthy for the first 5 weeks and just fucking smashes, and then he still sucks in BBM because he falls off or whatever the case may be. So I like the running backs here. I'm on team single stack the elite teams. I don't want to do Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Joe Burrow. I think that's maybe okay in BBM. Maybe it's a little bit too rich there. But really, like, I want Jamar Chase to like have 50 points. And like if Jamar Chase has 50 points, T. Higgins like might have 17, but like 17 points will not be enough from your 3rd round pick to win this thing. So I'm on single stack those the elite teams. I think the elite quarterbacks are just so consistently making the top 1st, 2nd, or 3rd quarterback on the week. And I think there's a chance that Justin Fields gets there more often. Jalen Hurts gets there more often. Lamar Jackson gets there more often. Justin Herbert gets there more often. Joe Burrow, their defense might be way worse this year. There's a chance him also not being off the ACL injury. Maybe he gets there more.
Yeah,
often.
I saw some tweet that they like 50% of the time last year did not play the starting quarterback of the opposing team.
I saw that. I think that was Bill Barnwell. Like these elite quarterbacks just might go off all year. So I'm on that. And then, I'm just betting on my 3 or 4 wide receivers that I draft in round 7, like being the 4 wide receivers that go off. And like a lot of the times I won't pick the right combination of those guys, but I know I like the upside of the running backs and I know I like the upside of the quarterback. So I'm just hoping that the wide receivers I pick are the ones that make sense for that team.
I don't know how many I'll get down just because I have so many other drafts to do. I don't think it's the worst format to auto draft where you set your positional ranks to 1 QB. You make sure you just start Hurts, AJ Brown.
Yeah, in that way.
Or you just go like literally you just go. I really think you can do some crazy reaches in this in a plus EV way. Like literally going Mike Williams, Justin Herbert, 1st, 2nd round, and then just being like, you know what? The weeks where you don't need a 1st and 2nd round player to ship weekly winners, I have way more of those guys on my team. Like that is like sacrilege to anyone who's like, what do you mean you're not going to take a Tony Pollard or Nick Chubb or anything? But I think you can get real weird in these streets or like guaranteeing you get like the whole Commanders offense. Like no matter what, like I'm getting Dotson, Terry, Sam Howell, and then I'm just going to litter it in with late round picks. Like I think there's some ways you can get real unique to try to ship a weekly winners week.
One more note on that real quick. I think what's going to happen is BBM is going to fill 5 days before NFL kickoff, somewhere in that kind of range. And then this will be the biggest tournament that's in the lobby. And a lot of people have not been watching streams like this, don't understand all the dynamics. And what you could see is like the last 20% of teams that go into weekly winners not be very sharp because people are just like throwing this in there. So I already think there's an edge to this for people because it's a brand new format. And there's a lot of strategy wrinkles. Like that's why I love this tournament is the strategy wrinkles. But if a lot of the people are throwing stuff into this thing and they haven't looked at the strategy wrinkles, I do think this is like a very good tournament for people that are watching streams like this.
And it's just like this in the Eliminator is just a fun sweat experience during the course of a season, right?
Yeah, of course.
Where, like in some ways with weekly winners, it's like, okay, worst case scenario, I'll do a in-season best ball draft. Like the Eliminator is just going to be a lot of fun. Just being like, all I got to do is be like 7 to 10 or
Eliminator's. It's like honestly just a hilarious game. Like, it's fun. There's strategy. It's fun to sweat and stuff. It's also just like a hilarious thing to think about.
And I really think that $50 to $75 price point, Underdog's seen a lot of success with. Like,
I'm pounding the table for more of those. So
like the Pitbull snap filled, like the Bulldog, the big dog 250, like that's a little bit steeper. Like someone who's doing a BBM, they will shot take a $75 one.
I agree with you. I will be pushing for that. I think there's a lot of evidence for it too.
Yeah, I think you guys could fill a lot of those. Like again, they snap fill. Let's jump into being Kitchen's team here. Kitchen, if anyone missed a stream yesterday, just kind of like kept on screaming the word beta and alpha at me.
I honestly don't hate that strategy. This is a tournament for alphas. Like if you don't project really well, get out of here.
I'm an alpha drafter though. Like that's what like he just kept on screaming like, oh, that's a beta. Like I said, oh, I'm a little bit worried about Cam Akers. He's like, oh, that's beta. It's like
I think he might have a point. We'll see.
So we got Cup at the 109. I don't really understand why he
I love that.
falls in weekly winners. Like, I think this is like a common thing though, where
because people I don't understand it. Cooper Kupp, when he's healthy and Stafford's healthy, will be the highest player in projections, even over Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. I hate to break that to you. That's what's going to look like.
I understand it where it's like you are just real confident AJ Brown's going to have some 40 burgers, like he's going to have some like 200 yards, 3 touchdown games.
Yeah.
Kupp's just going to have a lot of consistent 30.
I think he can have some 35-point games. This defense might be like historically bad. And whenever McVay's in a situation like that, he goes absolutely nuts with just short passes. And
did they shore up their O-line this year?
They're trying. It's going to be a disaster, but I don't necessarily think it's like such a bad thing for Cooper Kupp. If the Rams are getting blown out, like Cooper Kupp's going to catch like 7 passes in the fourth quarter. Like, my bold prediction show, I think that I said that Cooper Kupp's going to beat the reception record by 10. This could just be absolutely ludicrous. Everything's kind of coming together for him.
Yeah, he could definitely be the wide receiver one. Pollard is a guy who I think could be the RB one. Yep. So, like, I'm Pollard over Chubb. I'm Pollard over Saquon. I'm Pollard over Eckler. Like, Diggs is my 106 in regular best ball. I don't draft Kelsey. I don't draft Eckler. I have a little bit just in case I'm, like, real wrong. Like, the Eckler thing's hard where it's like, I'm expecting the offense to be better, but we also have these, like, rumorations of like wanting a higher ADOT, and you have more target competition, and like a lot of Eckler's big games came without Keenan or Mike in the lineup. So
100%.
Like, he can stun run touchdowns, but he's not, he's getting older too.
The one thing with that though is he can lose 75 fantasy points and still be a first round pick.
Yeah.
Like, because he was smashing everybody. So I agree. He does not project nearly as well. I am nervous, but you're hoping Tony Pollard turns into Eckler. Same thing with Bijan Robinson a little bit. Like, I have Pollard like right next to all these guys. I don't see a big difference. All I know is I want all of them.
And Pollard's fantasy playoffs is like the nuts, by the way. It's like Detroit, Chargers, Buffalo, where it's like Buffalo maybe not great, but could be. Then we went Ramondre and Herbert. I can hear you clearly, by the way. I don't know what the chat's saying.
Okay, yeah.
We had to go Hopkins for Kitchen's sake here. So he just, like, he's a Titans guy. Of course, you're getting him. So, like, and I don't know how I view Hopkins. Like, I'm not drafting a lot of him. I don't think the Titans is a great landing spot with, like, literally the worst O-line in the league. And have you seen the Titans' first 6 games?
No.
They're like Vegas dogs in all of them, including to the Colts. And, like, some of them, like, they're for sure not winning. And do they roll with Tannehill if they start 0-6 or 1-5?
They're all in on this team. I think it's just Vrabel's a savage. Like, they could have easily traded.
Everyone wants to say Vrabel. Like, coaches don't play the game,
Yeah, but like, he calls the shot in that organization. So if he's saying we're rolling with Ryan Tannehill, like, they are rolling with Tannehill.
We'll see what happens if they're 1-5, which it's tough. Then we got Damian Pierce. So we're kind of like making our bed with 3 high upside running backs. Our 2 wide receiver spots held down. We got Quentin Johnston for the stack. Rashad White is an interesting one where, in some ways, like on a 0 RB team, I kind of like Rashad White, where it's like, yeah, do I think he's going to have a lot of 20 balls? No, but I think he's going to have like a lot of 10 to 15, which is enough.
Yeah.
In weekly winners, I'm not as sure about it. How are you feeling about the White pick?
I don't think I've drafted Rashad White once, and I'm okay making a stand like that. He goes too close to the Miles Sanders, and I usually have 3 running backs by this point. And if I have 3 running backs at this point, I like want to use their points. So I kind of wait a couple tiers, and then I'll like hit like Algier and like Ty Chandler or whatever it is as my 4 and 5. So this tier is not my favorite just because the tier that we talked about a couple minutes ago is like a better tier for me.
And then we went Richardson, which, like, I think you can definitely roll with solo Herbert and add in whoever their wide receiver 4 is. I don't even think it's Jalen Guyton anymore. Like, they have like
Palmer.
Palmer, but there's also like
Palmer's
Demario Davis or someone like that.
Special teams.
So we went Richardson, which I think is just like a great guy to stack up in weekly winners. We get like the whole offense. Kitchen made us go Tony, and we got J-Mo.
I'm buying these Tony dips.
You are?
Yeah, sadly.
I don't know. I'll have some at the 100 price point. I thought he was like the worst pick on the board when he was a 6-7 round pick.
Yeah, it's been tough.
And then we got Everett, Higbee, Alec Pierce, DPJ, Shaheed, Woods, Josh Downs. So we got pieces to stack with Richardson for the weeks that he's going to be a high A-dot thrower. He's going to have spike weeks with these guys, especially with Pierce, Downs. I'm not even sure if Woods is the tight end one. Like, I think that's one where the market could get rug pulled on if they do Mo Alley Cox and Granson.
Guaranteed Kitchen was yelling alpha on the Jelani Woods pick, though.
I don't remember. He did not. Like, I think you should be layering. Like, I know what you said earlier, where it's like we kind of overrate these deep A-dot wide receivers, but like,
I'm fine with them. I'm okay
like
with them.
Shaheed, DPJ, Pierce, I like a lot. So, how do you like the team? Any changes you would make? Any teams you're seeing on the board that you kind of like?
I wouldn't have drafted Herbert, I don't think, without Keenan Allen or Mike Williams. I think he spikes when those guys get there. Though Quentin Johnson, if one of those guys gets hurt, so you can paint a picture. I just think it's a little bit thinner going that way. I think this team would have been a lot of fun if you would have swapped Herbert out for a wide receiver, or running back. To me, like Josh Jacobs. Is that Josh Jacobs? Yeah, like I would have gone Josh Jacobs possibly, and then that would be 3 absolute savage running backs, which is like probably not the best thing, but I think I would have built this team around Anthony Richardson. Perhaps
Richardson fell though. Like, he goes around 8 in most weekly winners. Like, we weren't expecting him to be there
for sure. I think the quarterback discussion on weekly winners is so difficult because I think I want Herbert with his wide receivers, not Eckler. Like, I feel like if you looked at the Eckler spikes, it's like because they threw the ball 50 times, but like Herbert had like 280 yards, and it was like one of those like, what are we doing here, Chargers games? But there's certainly some correlation there. Obviously, like Herbert can be throwing bombs all day, they get tackled out to 1, and then play action.
So if you're wondering if Hayden's over the Chargers stint, the answer is no.
No. I'm kidding. I need Justin Herbert and Mike Williams this year. That's all I need for this.
Yeah, I'm Mike over Keenan.
I love Mike Williams this year.
Any teams you're seeing here? Construction mistakes, construction hits. Like, I really think that's something you should be doing. Is like, if you take Josh Allen, you should for sure just add on Harty and Sherfield late. If you take Joe Burrow, like, I want some Charlie Jones. I want some Andre Estafadovas. You know, I'm with you with Burrow. I do not want to have Chase and Higgins. Definitely one of them.
Yep.
But I am okay tacking on a mid-round Boyd and like, I guess the tight end, or like Chris Evans. I would like to tack on there if he is the third down back. I think like 0 RB and then stopping at wide receiver is definitely a way to build. Like the first weekly winners I did, which was
let me see this one
a while ago. It was a Burrow and Howell team. It has this was back when Saquon was a 2-3 turn guy, and Pollard. So that's pretty nice to have Chase, Pollard, Saquon, Brian Robinson, Algier, Ford.
Smashing.
And we did Chase Brown. Probably would have made that Chris Evans. I still think Chase Brown could hit later in the season.
Yeah.
Chase, Terry, Mike, Zay, Tyler Boyd, DPJ, and we did the Charlie Jones thing here, who kind of seems like he was drafted to be Boyd's replacement in some ways.
Yes, for sure. He's a kind of vertical slotty type guy.
Yeah, and then we have Waller, Kincaid, Knox. We're just not playing for week 13, but like 3 tight ends, especially like cheap Waller, who I've been in on like Waller as league winner. Like, I liked him more than Goddard. I liked him more than Pitts. His price is getting a little untenable for me though at 5.6.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. At the time I was not hitting that tier, so I missed out on the Waller hype. But seems like things are going very well for the Giants.
It seems like the engine of the passing offense is going to be him, and like Brian Dable, really sharp guy to like bet on him.
Yep, I agree. Just got to hold up.
So I don't like this team could be weak at wideout. We got cheap Zay Flowers. Mike Evans is kind of like a weekly winners guy, you know?
I think this team's very good.
Yeah.
I think it's very
you like this team? You like this team more than the Kitchen and I team?
I do. It's hard to overcome the second, third round picks that you had in this one. Or like the freaking Paul.
Yeah, I mean, this was drafted so long ago.
That's insane. Yeah, I do think that I would guess you are putting too much emphasis on the wide receiver 4s and 5s like on their own teams to stack with. Like, yes, they are low owned, but if I don't see many games, even if Charlie Jones is the starter, where like Joe Burrow is like moving the fields, throwing touchdowns to like somebody like Charlie Jones,
like Trent Irwin did last year.
Yeah, anything's possible. The Trent Irwin, I believe it was like one really long touchdown where like, okay, anything is possible.
My counterpoint would be
guys that like don't get drafted that like have like legit upside.
My counterpoint would be that in a format like this, it's even better than regular best ball because you don't need that spike week to fall week 15, 16, 17.
Anytime.
You just need any of the weeks for them to spike where it's like Deontay Hardy is like one of my favorite guys where it's like he's going to have a 2 touchdown game. Okay. Period. You know? And like a punt return touchdown. Like
yeah, and I think we pretend that uniqueness is like really important for Best Ball Mania, but if you I'm not sure about that. That we pretend that there's a big uniqueness factor in Best Ball Mania, but really like weeks 1 through 14 doesn't matter at all. Week 15, there's 15 people in your pod. How much does uniqueness matter in 15? 1 of 15? I don't think that much in week 15. Same thing in week 16. And then in week 17, uniqueness somewhat matters, but like the drafted rate or like the people that are in the finals, like it's so skewed already that there's already a lot of unique teams in there by default. In this, uniqueness matters significantly more because let's say Jamar Chase is the guy you need. There are more Jamar Chase teams than teams that are cashing. How do you differentiate once you have the Jamar Chase teams?
Charlie Jones, baby.
So yeah, you can sell me a little bit there. I think it's like the odds that Charlie Jones gets there versus like Corey Davis gets there and Corey Davis doesn't get drafted all the time. Like I would just like,
is he getting cut, man? Like he's like kind of like a sneaky cut guy. People are saying.
I think when Rodgers took that pay cut, I think it was for Dalvin Cook, and so Corey Davis remains on the team.
Corey Davis not in last night's Hard Knocks episode at all. McCall Hardman was quite a bit.
Yeah, I think anything's possible. I also think that if Corey Davis gets cut and like the Chiefs come calling, like all of a sudden we're talking ball again. So I like that kind of tier a little bit more than the Charlie Jones fire shot. But if I am going to do the Charlie Jones thing, weekly winners is you have my permission in weekly winners to find these guys.
I think it's better on a team like Buffalo where it's like really first Buffalo runs a lot of different formations. Like all of Shakir, Sherfield, and Hardy are going to see the field. And also the ambiguity of who the wide receiver 3 is there. And also like the Chiefs where it's just like you just take all of Richie James, Justin Ross, take your pick, blah, blah, blah. Like their defense is going to be bad too. Anything else you want to say on weekly winners strategy-wise before we jump into Eliminator?
If I have the 11th or 12th pick, I'm taking 2 players with an ADP of like 17 overall. That's it. Like,
I do that in regular best ball. I understand it's like less important.
Yes, but I think this is the time to do it. So, like for example, it doesn't look as good now, but like you can draft Tony Pollard and Saquon like right now at the 1-2 turn, and they're just not paired that much. But that's a good
Pollard and Chubb.
Like, yes, make sure you've been keeping track of the ADPs, how they've gone. So like maybe like a better example is like Derrick Henry and Tony Pollard, where like I'm not sure how many times those guys were on the same build.
I'll give you one. Just starting your draft, Andrews Lamar, and then guaranteeing that your rest of combo is unique. Yes, you don't have a first and second round pick on your team, which is like tougher from to swallow.
It is tough to swallow,
but it's the easiest way to win to me.
For sure. I think like
it's how do you make things easy to win, you know?
Devontae Adams, Pollard, they're both 15th, 16th overall. They've been there for the entire tournament. Like those guys can just be the guys you need in a week for sure. So
I think in regular best ball and weekly winners, anytime you think a quarterback can be in the mix for QB1, you can always reach to pair them with their top pass catcher or one of their top pass catchers in Herbert and Mike to guarantee uniqueness on the rest of your roster. And you're making things easier to win, but you're lowering your floor where it's like, yes, you're not except you don't have a first and second round pick on your team.
For sure. But you have to come in first out of 200,000 teams. Like,
yeah,
all you have to say is like, there's a 1 in whatever % chance. And I think there is a 1.
It's like, okay, I have the only Mike Williams, Herbert pairing 1-2 plus 3-4 turn guys where other people are taking
the 3-4 guys like just balled out versus the 1-2. Yeah,
exactly. Which like that's going to happen some weeks, you know,
anything is possible.
Anything that's no, like that's the cop out when people say like, oh, anything is possible. Like,
but this is the actual like, don't do that in freaking Eliminator. Don't do that in BBM. Like, actually, just make good picks and good teams. This one, like, literally, like, oh boy, buckle up.
All right, you ready for Eliminator talk?
Let's do it.
Let's look at one I drafted this morning, and then we'll jump into a draft. Do you have time, or should we?
No, let's cut.
All right. Let's look at one I did so far. If I could drive better. Here we go. Eliminator. All right. So I streamed this one yesterday. So we'll look at this one I drafted this morning. It went Chase and Waddle. Waddle fell, which like in some ways makes sense in weekly winners. I think it's questionable for week 1. I kind of wish I went Calvin Ridley here. I literally just woke up and wasn't seen. All of the elite quarterbacks, and I've been saying that like there's going to be a lot of variance from draft to draft where like all the elite quarterbacks in my streamed one went at the 1-2
later. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we have one of each. Yeah.
Yeah. Like Allen went here, Hurts went here. Like I took Diggs and right before me, someone took Allen.
Mm-hmm.
And then like those drafters also paired them up with like Herbert and Burrow. So I went Chase, Waddle, Hurts, Burrow, who they have different buys. Hawkinson, Chris Godwin fell, which kind of feels nice as like your wide receiver 3 with like a pretty safe floor for a structure like this. Reached on James Conner, who kind of just needed his like points early on to like try to advance, and I'm strong enough elsewhere. Brian Robinson, I'm kind of Brian Robinson over Antonio Gibson. I was drafting Gibson when he was in the 130s, and I just found the new price tag tough to stomach. Charbonnet, I'm big on him. Got my guy Kincaid, who has the same buy as Hawkinson, but I'm hoping that I'm like killing teams at tight end most weeks, which is going to help me advance compared to like, you know, like I like some of the late round tight ends, but their floors are questionable.
Yeah.
Jalen Warren, who's going to be a riser.
Yep.
Everett as my third tight end with a week 5 buy instead of week 13. Reached on Jeff Wilson, just getting like a maybe
Jeff Wilson right now.
RB1. Mingo Reed, Shaheed finishes off. Kyron Williams, I'm pretty big on him. Pretty confident he has a role with the Rams resting him. And Michael Wilson, where it's like when I am drafting these late wide receivers, I want to be drafting the rookies and or like in Reed's case, like I'm just kind of betting that he's better than Romeo Doubs, which is like very live to happen.
Yeah. So I think on this, my general thoughts, I haven't been able to figure out like when the bye weeks, like you want early round buy or early season buys or late season buys. Like I think I want to stack teams after week 8 because that's when you could cash. But
I think a lot of people are going to do that though.
For sure. And at the same time, it's easier to advance early in the season versus later in the season. So I think that was pretty fun that we did it that way. I think I just don't want to cede points at quarterback. Like that means drafting 2 good quarterbacks. If that means drafting 2 more quarterbacks at the end, if it means hitting Daniel Jones, Geno Smith, and Kenny Pickett, like I just will refuse to go into a week and get eliminated because a quarterback injury or my quarterback had 15 points, because it's the position that scores the most points. So I think I want that way. And I think maybe I'm a little bit more open to like Travis Kelce because his consistency and just like hope that he doesn't get injured. But I think I still like the late round tight ends because it's a position that scores the least. And I do think that you can like still advance if you have 5-6 points from your tight end. So if you completely punt that off, I do think that's viable.
All right. So you saw this one. Let's show you my other one and you pick your favorite. All right.
Okay.
This one was done like literally right after the contest launched. So I went Diggs, Chubb, Ramondre,
Love it.
Watson, Kirk.
Okay.
Really like Kirk in a format like this. Felt nice to get Trevor at ADP when like this was happening. Allen Fields, Hurts, Herbert.
Okay.
I reached on Burrow. Zay Flowers, Deshaun Watson, who like I'm not a big Watson guy, but like in this format, again, I want quarterback. Charbonnet, Warren, P. Ryan, Nico, Juwan Johnson, Luke Musgrave, DPJ, CJ Stroud, Michael Mayer, Josh Down. So it is only 3 tight ends, like questionable floor.
I think that's fine to me.
Do you like this team better, or do you like the other team I did better? And like, I don't think I needed to take CJ Stroud,
Right.
but he does stack with Collins. Like that pick could have been another tight end, maybe, or wide receiver.
Yeah, guys that like Zay Flowers and Christian Watson, Josh Downs, like they seem very fragile for this. Like it's like truly is like you just want what's the best median outcome. Like that's like basically all that matters. So those guys to me have like some things where like things should just like really be busty with those guys.
We got nice buy distribution here.
I do think buy distribution is a factor. It's like I would for sure keep that in mind. But I think I would just like rather like your point of like Chris Godwin. Like I think I know what I'm getting with Chris Godwin this year. Like he's going to be the wide receiver 28. Like I don't think there's like he's going to be the wide receiver 60 all of a sudden. Like I do think Zay Flowers could just like not pan out as a rookie. Especially if you are playing like weekly winners in best ball. Like I see the upside case with those type of guys. So maybe I'm a little bit lower on the rookies, for example. Nick Chubb and Ramondre, they just got to stay healthy, and this team's live to me. So I think I would just be very cognizant of the archetypes of players and then the distribution of bye weeks in it as tiebreakers. I would rather have bye weeks like after week 8.
All right, enough talking about it. Let's jump in one. I don't think you're allowed to get profit sharing from me.
No.
So
the lawyers would hate that. So
I will just fly to New York and drop a bag of money off on your doorstep.
No, you will not. No, you
like
will not.
Robin Hood. Just kidding. I will not do that. We are in the Eliminator, guys. It looks like looks like it filled. Looks like I jumped in and I was and we pulled
12.
I love the turn picks, man. Very casual. You'll need to pay attention that much. My favorite picks on the board.
I have like the middle tier now because I can go like Cooper Kupp, Tony Pollard, Ramondre. Like I think that build is sick.
I'm just talking from laziness perspective. Like
100% as a streamer, it does help.
Especially if you're like watching TV.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
All right. So, there's no hard and fast strategy people have down for Eliminator. You know, I was kind of spitballing. I do think quarterback is more important like you. Probably a more balanced build in some ways. Although I do think like if you did go 0 RB with like 5 wide receivers that are good, all with different buys, you could just take 9 running backs and make up with it in volume.
Yeah, for sure. I think that like going back to like our initial discussion, diminishing returns at each position. Like I think that matters more so than ever. Like, and going back to the weekly winners, Dooley, who I see in the chat, he had this awesome stat. It's like 90% of the top teams use their first round pick. Like 85% use their second round pick. Like 80 of their third round picks were in their starting lineups. Like to me, that just sticks with me for everything. Like whatever we do in the first 4 rounds, like we just pivot away from that position, regardless if that's running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends. Like I think it all directionally matters about the same.
Yeah, it is fun that Dooley and others pointing out here how week 10 and 13, week 13 is like when the Bills have a bye, the Giants have a bye, the Ravens have a bye. Week 10 is, I think the Chiefs and the Eagles and I don't know who else, but we are with the badge brigade right now. Thanks to everyone for tuning into this. Hit the subscribe button. Help me out. I'm on the road to 3K here. We're close.
Let's do it.
And hit the like or whatever you do out there, chat. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Nearly 140 of you here to listen to Hayden Winks. Some are calling him the data goat. I didn't say
that is completely fake news.
Some are
schooled by the data guys out there right now. There are so many people that absolutely hammer this data now. It's insane.
I'm not telling you to do this, chat, but it wouldn't be the worst idea to have thousands of you just at the Chargers and be like, you messed up not hiring Hayden for the analytics department.
They probably saw how much ping pong I was playing at lunch with the marketing team. We're like, this is not going to translate well. So
we don't need that distraction here. We're getting rid of that board.
Yes, literally.
All right, so we're coming up. I really like Amon-Ra's floor ceiling combo where like he just feels like very safe to be like around 15 half point PPR points a week with a high ceiling. Also down to grab one of these running backs. So
Yeah.
personally like Pollard more, but I mean, I don't know, like his leg injury, is there anything to be concerned about there? How do you view
I like Saquon and Pollard the most. But
all right, let's get a robust build here.
let's see what happens here.
We'll lock in our 2 running backs. Are you worried at all about Saquon this year? Like, I've not been drafting him as much. I'm just kind of worried that, like, with the offense being better and him having more target competition, but at the same time, it's like
more touchdowns.
I do draft some of him because he's still Saquon.
And for us here, game script dependent running backs matter a lot more in this as well. And like Tony Pollard and Saquon Barkley are playing in every game script. So like, I like that. There's other running backs when you get in there, it's like, okay, he's not playing on third downs. If they're losing by 2 touchdowns at halftime, like he's toast. And so I think like that matters a little bit here. And I think both these guys project well. Like, is Saquon going to be the 9th overall player this year like he was last year? Like, no, he could be the 16th, but like, do I see him being the 24th? Like, I don't think so.
I do think a fun build for this, which most people would call a no-no for regular best ball, is like Pollard, Saquon, and then like Ramondre Etienne, and then go like double elite QB, double elite tight end, and then just wide receiver it out.
You can sell me on a third one. I'm not sure if you can sell me on a fourth yet.
So like a 2, 4, 2, 10 build.
What if it's like Jacobs and like Charbonnet though, and then we're do 4?
Yeah, I mean, there's better ways to do it, probably, where you like, oh yeah, like
the
Jacobs.
Bid equity is pretty good to go 4 straight running backs and like actually being somewhat serious. But yeah,
I think it's viable. Like, yeah, it's probably better to like make your 4th in the mid range. There's a lot of late round running backs too, like Dameon Pierce, like whoever. But the point is, I think a hyper fragile build could be pretty good in a format like this, especially if you have elite guys at the onesie positions too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'd be very interesting how you would pull all that off, though. Like, what's your definition of elite tight end? Like, who's the last? Is Pitts an elite tight end? I would say no at this point.
Yes, I think he is.
Okay, just because.
Do you think Pitts is going to go for around 1,000 receiving yards?
Probably goes like 850, but I think he's got a chance to do 1,200. Like, certainly has a chance.
I think he'll be close to 1,000 in a healthy season. So, like, to me, that's elite.
Okay, Dallas Goedert, is he elite?
No, I think he was like one of the most mispriced guys. I think he's like a low advance rate guy. He has some contingent
stack, right?
Yeah, he's got some contingent upside. But no, like he's like after Pitts for me, after Kittle, after Waller, after Hawkinson, after all those guys.
So it's like 6. So it's including Pitts, Hawkinson, Waller, and Kittle, but everyone else, Njoku, Goddard.
I mean, I would draft if I draft Goddard, I'm drafting him like he's elite. Like I'm probably going to, but I personally am just a lot.
Like
yeah, and it's also like Swift is going to eat into some of those routes, probably like that area of the field, short targets. I don't know. Like how are you feeling about Goddard?
I don't draft him much. I'm fine with single stacking Jalen Hurts. Like I know what he does rushing the ball. Like I'm totally fine. Just AJ Brown or Devontae, and like it doesn't matter. Like if I don't know, like I think I can match Goddard's weeks.
Yeah, and I mean I will draft some guys who I think are going to be low advance rate on purpose. Like I think almost every tight end qualifies for that. Where especially like the guys in like rounds like 8, 9, 10, where they could be totally outscored by the running backs in that range. But if you're able to advance them, now you're cooking with some gas in the playoff rounds. But that's not what we're doing here. We're just trying to be mediocre.
Week 9, and we're doing something.
We're mediocre-ish. All right. So we're coming up here. I'm pretty confident you're going to want to go double elite or 2 wide receivers. I'm also down for Fields. I don't know how I feel about him in an eliminator. So he has that really high weekly ceiling. His floor should also be there with rushing ability, but
kind of is, but like also isn't. Like sometimes like the Bears like literally just can't move the ball. I like Amari here for sure.
Okay. I'm a big Mike Williams guy.
I'm fine with that.
I personally like Mike more than Amari. Okay. You want to go Mike and Amari, or you want to get Fields as one of the picks? Let's figure out quarterback later.
I'm fine with those 2 wide receivers.
All right. We're eating 2 week 5 buys, but that's not a big deal.
I do think like going like Anthony Richardson, Geno Smith, Kirk Cousins,
Daniel
or whatever,
Jones.
like getting like 2 or 3 of that tier, like to me is totally fine. Like I would still want to stack it up. But like for us, maybe it's if we can get Herbert, he's not going to fall, I don't think. But like going Deshaun Watson with Daniel Jones and Kenny Pickett, like I think that's way more viable here than it would be in like weekly winners or BBM.
You are a little bit quieter now. I don't know if the mic is. I like hitting like the like Jones and Richardson, Dak and Jones, Dak and Richardson in this range. Geno if I have a Seahawk, and then trying to hit like Rodgers or Goff if they fall here. Like those are kind of like the last quarterbacks I feel good about. I am optimistic about Purdy. I am optimistic about Jordan Love.
Okay. What about Pickett?
I'm Love over Pickett. I will admit he looked good in the preseason game. He has the weapons.
He runs, man.
He does.
He's
run. It's just like hard to get over the fact he threw 9 touchdowns last year.
For sure. And Matt Canada is going to hold them back to some degree.
And like they want to run the ball at their identity and have like a much better O-line to do it.
Right.
How are you Love or Pickett? I put a poll out and it was like Love or Pickett and it was like a 50-50 poll.
Yeah.
I put another poll out. Who scores more points, Packers or Broncos? 50-50.
Classic. Yeah. Pickett to me was an infinitely better prospect than Jordan Love was. Like, look at their college numbers. Like, Pickett like threw like 3 times as many touchdowns. Like, and I
Jordan Love looked good in the preseason. I'll just say that.
I think that Jordan Love has a chance. I also
and he has like a really good O-line, right?
He does. I think
he
that
could be bad.
Like,
he could for sure be bad, but
yeah. I think I'm trusting my model a little bit with Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett was like a legit good prospect in my model. And I think his weapons are pretty good. And I think that Tomlin, like in the format like this, like I think Pickett will make big improvements this year. And I think there's a chance that Love is just like, oh, that just straight up didn't work out. I think that Kenny Pickett will be like an average quarterback.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm worried that in a goal line, they're going to try to pound the ball in. They have a good defense too,
but that division's nasty.
Yeah. But like, I don't know, like you see a lot of coaches like turtle, like we saw like the Packers and the Patriots like choose to lose by the least rather than try to win some games. Yep. Like Aaron Rodgers against the Bills, they were just like down 20 and like Aaron Jones was running the ball. They were just like, nope, we're not even going to try.
Yeah.
The Patriots were like classic cowards last year, just like not trying at all.
Bad.
It's like, oh, all right, you guys are just gonna try to lose. They would
like punt the ball like fourth quarter, 10 minutes left at the 40. You're like, what are we doing here? It's insane.
Yeah. I was just like, all right, someone needs to take this guy out to pasture. Like this is over.
I won't say that because he's still nasty on defense. But maybe I think Bill O'Brien will make a big difference.
I don't know, man. It's like Bill hired those bozos. He's still there. Like,
yeah. But I do think that he can be like, I'm not paying attention to the offense. Bill, that is your duty. I'm focused on the defense. And like, I think Bill O'Brien is like a capable play caller.
Bill O'Brien wanted to trade DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson. Maybe that wasn't him. Maybe that was the GM.
Yeah, but luckily he's not making roster decisions right now.
Yeah, well, he is ruling the offense apparently. Mm-hmm. I don't know, man. I think like there's also like big O-line concerns for Patriots where it's like
right tackle's bad. I think the rest of it will hold up. But
you talk about the groupthink of sharp drafters. Every sharp drafter in the world is like, and I'll end my drafts with Devontae Parker, Hunter Henry, and Mac Jones, and have that low own stacked. And it's like, my take is like, I'll simply draft anyone else. Yeah,
I am way overweight on Juju, Parker, and Hunter Henry. I'm not sure if I've drafted Mac Jones many times. I think it'll be functional. They'll be watchable this year.
Percent chance that Bailey Zappi plays over Mac in a game.
Like extremely low, I think. I think Mac is functional.
What was that last year? Why did they
They're being weird. Mac was also looking like trash and yelling at Patricia. So I think there might have been a little bit of gamesmanship.
Well, maybe Mac's sharp. Maybe I need to give the guy credit.
I think Mac is sharp. Here, I'll put it this way: Nick Saban thinks Mac Jones could play football. I think that's at least tells me something.
I would have definitely been down to just rock and make. Like, you don't need to stack your quarterbacks in this format. If anyone's wondering, like, obviously it helps a little bit, but just straight up not needed. If Hawkinson's there,
I like that.
I'm still a Hawk guy.
I like that.
If not,
I like Pierce a lot. And Hawkinson.
Okay.
Those would be my guys. I think that Lockett and Godwin also makes sense.
These are the last range of wide receivers we feel good about, but they all have week 5 buys. So I'm down to go Pierce, and like arguably we should go Gabe Davis just for buy distribution, or Hollywood.
Yeah, I'm fine with Gabe or Gabe or Pickens. Let's do Gabe for the bit. You like him, I like him. To answer your question, you said like, like if James Cook's not good and Kincaid's not good, then who's good? My answer is Gabe's gonna be good again.
I do think it's more realistic than some people think that Kincaid is the 2 by.
I think it's possible.
Yeah.
I think I copy paste that Cole Beasley year, like his like 2 years with Diggs, and he would have been like the tight end like 8, but Cole Beasley didn't score that many touchdowns. I think it's hard for Kincaid to be Cole Beasley in year 1. So I think like his ADP to me is like appropriate. I have him like right where he's going. I don't think it's a super smash, but like if I am taking one of these rookies, like I want to be on a decent enough offense or I want a full-time role, like Luke Musgrave, I think has that. And I think Kincaid has the good offense part. So, but you made a really good point about the rookie tight ends historically just happening to go to the shittiest quarterbacks and landing spots. Like that makes perfect sense. Like, of course they kept busting.
It's like 44-year-old Eli Manning was literally the best quarterback in the Twilight year Andy Dalton. It's like if people actually like research some of these narratives, like the year I was drafting Ramondre, like everyone, including Rudman, Patriot fan, was like, "Oh, rookie running backs don't hit for the Patriots," and I'm like, "Big dude, 220 pounds, like, sign me up, Ramondre." I have 50% Kincaid, which could bust. Like me liking Kincaid does not mean I don't like Laporta, because I like Laporta. I like Musgrave quite a bit. I just think they all have upside. Like Laporta and Musgrave have going for them where their target competition's a little questionable, and they're like unquestioned starters just to start the year. Kincaid, man, I don't know. Did you see any of his preseason routes? Looked good.
His routes were good. His blocking was questionable as expected. Like,
he's not going to block, dude. He's going to block a corner. Like he can block a corner.
Well, and in the second game, they already made some adjustments. They used him as like fullback, he was like blocking linebackers instead of edges. But I do think that first they kept throwing or running the ball with James Cook. I think that was all right, could James Cook run the ball up the middle? And then it was also like, can Kincaid hold up against an edge? And like Kincaid was getting smoked, and like it didn't matter.
They were testing him. They
definitely showcase for both of them.
Yeah. Especially Kincaid's blocking. And again, like this is arguably like a historical good time to enter the NFL as a tight end, where you have this cover 2 meta, which like could change, but probably not, which opens up the middle of the field. This is supposed to be a historical tight end class. And like what a lot of tight ends struggle with is like the blocking, which like a lot of these guys are not going to be asked to block.
And I think like in Luke Musgrave's case, I think he can block, and his competition is another rookie tight end I don't think's got it. I will say with Laporta's got the playing time, but he doesn't have that dog in him like Musgrave does. So just go watch some of Laporta. He's more of a finesse guy, and like Dan Campbell, I can see like of the rookie tight ends who like are getting hype, which one's like, oh, he's actually running around on 65% of the snaps. I think Laporta would be the one.
The biggest thing I question with him is touchdowns. Like, I think he's going to catch a lot of balls. I don't know how many touchdowns he'll have. I agree with you there. But like, you want these tight ends who are like golden retrievers, which like Luke Musgrave, golden retriever.
Classic.
Dalton Kincaid, golden retriever. Yeah. I don't know if Laporta is a golden retriever. He kind of seems like I don't know.
he's just much smaller, and I think size matters at tight end, especially for Dan Campbell, a literal tight end in the National Football League. That's a complete grown ass man.
Yeah, dude, him doing up downs at the Hard Knocks is like
can't beat it.
Talk about a tough follow for Robert Saleh. Like going from Dan Campbell to Robert Saleh is like no one was gonna look good, but tough,
sure.
bro.
I agree.
All right, so we're coming up on the clock here. We got a pretty balanced build.
Yep.
2 week 7 buys at wide receiver, 2 week 5 buys. 2 week 7 buys at running back, 2 week 5 buys at wide out. Yep. We don't have a quarterback. Deshaun is there for the stack. I kind of think Swift goes. I was going to float him. Are you cool with grabbing Deshaun here?
I like Deshaun. I kind of like Pittman. Like I don't.
Yeah, at this price, I think it's fine.
I think the targets will be there. I don't see him blowing up as often, but I think like he's gonna finish as the wide receiver 34 this year.
He's gonna be like close to Godwin. Like I like Alec Pierce a lot more from like a spike week perspective, but that could look foolish if like Pittman's winning down the field too.
Yeah, I think Pittman's really good. But I think it's a better format for Pittman. It sounds like counterintuitive because like Anthony Richardson's got a low floor, but I think Pittman's going to get targets. I don't know if he's going to score a bunch of long touchdowns and stuff that you need in the other type of formats.
I agree with you. Like I'm not drafting Pittman at the 6-7 price. Mm-hmm. Like I'm just not. But here I think it's fine. I do think Kamara was interesting on this build where we have 2 week 7 buys, but we have strength where we could have like eaten the 3-game suspension and then floated Kamara and like probably just been done at running back. I've not been drafting Kamara. Word is that he now like looks explosive again. You still have this headache of Jamal and Kendre and Taysom and Foster. How are you viewing Kamara?
Last year, the Saints were 28th in running back usage. So now there's more competition. So I do still think it's a little thin. I like that they're pivoting away from Kamara as like the guy. Like I think he's a committee guy now at this point, which is like no disrespect to him. That coaching staff drives me nuts. I think it's the worst offensive coaching staff in the league.
Yeah, is Dennis Allen a good coach? No, right?
Dude, not a good coach and defensive minded and old school and has a lot of say because he's been there forever. And like same with like Pete Carmichael. I think they're gonna play really slow. They're gonna punt the ball a ton. Their defense is respectable. That division is slow paced and shitty. Like there's just no point in the Saints playing fast. And I just worry that like Chris Olave is good, but can't pay off that ADP.
I think like in a total points format, Olave to me is like
no go.
Maybe like he's fine in the sense that again, you need to start 3 wide receivers, but like they didn't even like let him play 100% of snaps.
No, he was a rotational player. Like he was amazing football player. He was the wide receiver 34. Now he's a second, like yes, second year leaps, believe in it, like 100%. He has to be there. It's not even about him. Like he's not going to get much better than he was last year. Like he was already really good. I don't think the Saints offense could actually pull that off.
What about Michael Thomas, man? Let's like, I was optimistic he could be kind of like a cheaper Calvin Ridley where it's like, he was like good last year. Reports have been very mixed. Like some reports are like, he could be a good pass catcher 4 on the team. Other reports are like, he looks like himself some days.
So I kind of have like a backwards thought with this where like the older player, he's going to look worse as the season progresses. I think just because he hasn't been conditioning and practicing being hit, I can see him like kind of just like getting a little bit better as he like gets his legs underneath him.
And doesn't his like game mesh well with Carr, like versus Olave?
Yeah. The Michael Thomas stuff is hard because Chris Olave is such a good route runner too, that like that's a different dynamic. And like Jawan Johnson's there and Jawan Johnson's a good football player.
And like Shaheed sounds like he was doing good before he got hurt.
For sure. So yeah, it's difficult. I just don't like the coaching staff. So like I'm fine full fading basically everyone except I want Jawan Johnson because he kind of fits that every down big mold, can also run routes, but they're just
this is not a fun team. This schedule is just like they're gonna try to win a bunch of games by like 3 points.
Yeah.
Titans, Panthers, Packers, Bucks, Patriots, Texans, Jags.
Yeah, it's a division, man.
The best quarterback they play. Colts, Bears, Vikings, second best quarterback they play. Falcons, Lions, third best quarterback they play. Panthers, Giants, third or fourth best quarterback they play. Rams, Bucks. Like
When are
like,
they trying?
They
to
have
go
that
crazy?
Eagles schedule from last year. You know what I mean? But they don't have that Eagles offense.
Yes, it's I'll post every clip of Olave routing people up, and it'll be like 6 targets. And it's like, all right, there you go, 2nd round pick.
So Michael Thomas for you, draft or pass? I couldn't imagine full fading him.
Yeah,
I'm okay. If, like some people are like, oh, he's an awful pick, blah blah blah. Like I think like injury stuff can be kind of just unlucky sometimes. Like Saquon blowing up an ankle after he returned from an ACL.
Yeah, when I was with the Chargers, I was always around players, and Michael Thomas was like one of the guys. So I was like, holy shit, like this, he looks outrageously long and like no body fat. Like he was just like one of those guys where it's like, oh, that's why he's been posting 100-yard or 100-catch seasons back to back. It's like he was one of those guys like that among NFL players, like was like really like special looking dude.
All right, so we have some options here. Njoku, I'm Kincaid over Freiermuth, but it's in this discussion. I kind of think we should hit 2 tight ends here, unless you like Geno doesn't really make sense with the week 5 bye. Your dude Tony is there.
No, yeah, Tony's not for this format. Yeah, pick your favorite 2 tight ends. I'm indifferent on them.
Where are you at on Njoku versus Freiermuth? It is kind of nice to get a week 6 bye in the mix.
That is
but
true.
Obviously Njoku stacks.
Man, I don't. My brain's not calculating this. What's your gut take?
I'm fine with Njoku here. Like, if we're optimistic on the Steelers, I do think Freiermuth has a good year. I also think that Darnell Washington will play some.
Yeah, I think it's a very specific role though. Let's go Njoku. We could have gone Freiermuth to set up Pickett later as like another quarterback, but
we can do Pickett naked again. Like you don't need a pass like that. That's an offense where it could just be so distributed.
100%. Yeah.
So far we got a Deshaun Watson build with Pollard, Saquon, and Pierce, Amari Cooper, Mike Williams, Gabe Davis, and Pittman, Kincaid, and Njoku. So pretty solid floor ceiling combo at tight end. 4 good wide receivers.
We need some more though.
If Kincaid does become the 2 target wise, like I think that's not like a death blow for Gabe Davis. He'll just be deeper A-dot, touchdowns, what have you. Pittman's got like a pretty nice floor. Mike Williams' floor should be helped if he's getting some slot work. Amari Cooper, like very safe, like 10 to 15 every week.
Mm-hmm.
We need some other buy distribution at running back. We'll probably go 3 QB with Watson.
Yes. It's like one of those, like, I just don't want to lose points at quarterback. And we already have an average quarterback at best. So like I want to play the volume game.
Yeah. I would have gone Richardson for sure if he made it back to us. And then maybe I'm going to QB with like a safe floor of Richardson. Like his ceiling's in question, like how good of a passer is he, but he's gonna be like around 16 points per game if he's running for like 70 yards or whatever.
I think on this build, to me, the key is we're winning this because our 3 running backs are like workhorses. So like I think of the position, to me, I would be the lightest on running back from this point forward. Like we just need those guys to be like consistent 15 to 20 touches, a touchdown every game, and then just kind of skip out on and add more wide receivers on this team.
And the nice thing is that week 7, where we have 2 buys, is 7 out of 11 advance.
Nice.
Saquon's buy is week 13. That's one of the hardest weeks to advance. 15
We're
out
already
31.
in the money, if like well into the money on that.
We're in the money. We're trying to win first here, but the nice thing is that we have Pollard and Pierce to go for that week.
Yeah.
I'm a proponent. You should always play for first.
This tournament is a little bit different though, because you can cash by backloading the buys. Like I'm not a min cash bro. I agree. We want to come in first place, but I do think when in doubt, after the caching would be nice.
I do think some like weird 4 quarterback builds are viable too. If you go like QB to end, like Pickett, Ritter, Mac, and whoever, ideally like buy distribution there. The Kincaid and Njoku will be bad picks if they get scored too similarly by guys like Juwan Johnson and Musgrave and whatnot. But like, it's a confident group to only go 3 tight end with, I think, having these two dudes.
And it's a lot different now that those guys that we like are now 13th, 14th round picks. And it's like, even if they do, it's like, okay, it's a 4-round difference. Like previously, like, okay, Juwan Johnson and Ferguson matched me. Like that's a death sentence. They're 17th to 18th round players. Yeah, Julie, I see your comment in there about the early buys. Someone mathy will have to do that. I haven't comprehended it yet.
I'll give you the vibe-based analysis. Don't overthink the buys. Just build teams that can advance in any given week. But I think there is going to be a lot of people that try to group think buys. Now the contest is already
gone.
It's like already
it's
filled.
Gone.
Like if you
you
wanted to play, come back next year. I mean, I do think Underdog could release eliminators in season. That's, like you guys do in season best ball. This would be a fine one to just like start week 1, but it is 62.5% filled. It was 30% filled at midnight East Coast yesterday.
Yeah. Late tonight or tomorrow morning. It's going to be gone.
Yeah. So, but anyways, I do think people who are trying to be thoughtful about the contest might try to, be like, oh, I want all late buys to cash, or I want some early buys. I kind of like the mix like we have, where some of the later weeks are harder to advance. So it's nice to have like your guys off by then. And then it's nice to just have some later guys so that you have guys playing. All right. So we're coming up here on the clock, rounds 11 and 12. I think we could really go anywhere.
Don't like
quarterback
much. Yeah.
Is
there any wide receivers that we like? I think that would be like my thing. If we can find some guys.
Gallup is draftable to me.
Okay. I can be sold on it.
Jameson Williams is a bad pick in this format. MVS is draftable to me. I'm kind of the mindset that we should reach on a quarterback of these guys because I don't view them that differently than like this range. But I'm down to go MVS or Gallup and MVS if you want.
That's fine with me. I can pitch you on Van Jefferson after these picks, though. That's for sure.
I would rather go Higbee than Van Jefferson. I'd be down with Higbee as our tight end 3.
Yeah, and if we get Stafford later, that could.
Okay, so we'll go Higbee, and then are you a Gallup or MVS? I think I'm Gallup.
Yeah, probably. I'm worried about him, but let's do it.
Are you worried about MVS?
Oh, I'm worried about both of these guys.
We don't have anyone on week 10 bye other than Higbee, so we'll go MVS for this one. We do have Pollard. I don't know. Like in some ways, Gallup is probably the wide receiver 3 in Dallas. On the other hand, he's a year recovered from his ACL, and he kind of like rushed back last year and was like turning it on down the stretch.
Yeah, and he said he was not confident on it. Like he said it was like not a good thing last year.
Yeah, so I think that could be kind of like, and he kind of seems like he's like a red zone weapon for Dak. Like I think what Joe did here, quote unquote, reaching for Jordan Love is like totally fine. Where you just like literally might not get these guys if you wait around to get them at ADP, and he wanted to stack him with Watson. Like I would have gone Love and Musgrave there if we wanted to too.
Yeah, that could have worked. Yeah.
But we'll just figure it out with our hodgepodge of late quarterbacks because one of the quarterbacks will fall. Like I don't want my QB2 to be like Bryce Young, Tannehill, Jimmy, Stroud. But why does Stroud go after Jimmy and Tannehill?
I don't know.
He's got a lot less job security questions.
I love Stroud as a prospect. I think he's going to be very good.
Yeah, I think it's hard to overstate going from Davis Mills to CJ Stroud, what that can do for the Texans.
Mm-hmm.
And
seems like they have a staff, they have a better offensive line. It's got a lot of things.
So we have 6 more picks. What would your ideal asset allocation be? Two of them are quarterbacks, so we got 2 other spots or 4 other spots to play with. Probably 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers.
At least 1 running back. I think if we felt good about this 4th one, we can pass on the 5th. And yeah, I think we need some wide receiver help. Big time.
Definitely do. I mean, if the league like does not continue doing cover 2, or like if I played the Chiefs, wouldn't I like, and I was like trying to draw up a defensive game plan, I think I'd be tempted to be like, you know what? If MVS catches a fucking ball, they're gonna
double
beat
Kelsey and just
but we're not letting Travis Kelce beat us this game.
Yeah.
Like that's how I would do it, you know?
Yeah, I'm guessing a lot of defensive coordinators have done that and just has not worked out well.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I don't know, and like I think like the cover 2 thing hits MVS particularly hard, but I don't think he's going to be as wind sprinty maybe this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this could just be Travis Kelce got injured this season, and MVS is just like, okay, like instead of 4 targets, it's 6, and now we have a chance.
And like Sky Moore could be bad.
Yes,
again,
definitely has a good chance of being bad.
I don't really draft him at all. Like he's kind of a scary fade on like an ambiguous room, but I don't have a lot of Tony either. Which like I like Tony's talent, but
I think the on Labor Day weekend, I would just be hammering Tony. Like the latest anyone can get him.
He's like tweeting at Giants fans. He's like such a fragile ego too. Like that's not great.
It's not great, but I can also tell you how he catches 75 passes this year.
I would have floated Damian Harris as another running back.
What about just hammering all the Giants wide receivers? Like one of them is going to be usable every single week. Like
I like to do that quite a bit, but I think this is the range where we grab
a quarterback.
2 quarterbacks.
I like Stafford for sure.
Yeah. And I'm waiting for Joe to pick. I like Howell and just like, let's not risk it.
Okay. Is there any wide receivers that we feel good about right here?
I don't think this tier is meaningful different to me than this tier.
What about the running backs? Just making sure that one of these guys we like. Yeah,
again,
yeah.
We're gonna make it work. Like,
yep.
I really like Howell quite a bit. He's steaming up boards too,
but it does not matter in this tournament at all that he's steamed up.
Yeah, no. I mean, he has a real especially with like Stafford's durability questions. Now, Howell's not guaranteed to get the whole year, but seems to have a pretty safe floor if he does. Like, it's hard to say if that rushing game against the Dallas was like a bit of a mirage. It's like literally like one game, but
right. Yeah, I think Howell will be a good pick for as long as he's the starting quarterback. I think there's odds that Jacoby Brissett, Ron Rivera's like, oh shit, Howell just threw 2 interceptions. My job's on the line. I'm going to the guy that's not going to throw interceptions. I do think that's like week 7 comes around, like that could be possible, but every single time Howell's in the lineup, he's like a smash pick.
Yeah. And even if he gets like benched later, Stafford and Watson can be enough.
Yeah. We need him to make it through week 5.
Yes.
Which he if things have gone really bad, if Sam Howell's not starting.
I mean, like you have to realize as a person that if you roll out Jacoby Brissett over the rookie or the essential rookie, you are being fired next year, period.
For sure.
Like you're not saving your job with that, to me.
Yeah. No, I agree. But
new ownership too. Like you think new ownership, like, oh, great job. You rolled with the journeyman. Like that's super safe and dumb,
yeah. I don't trust this coaching staff over there, though. I can just be them like, our defense is good. Our weapons are good. These turnovers are killing me. Jacoby Brissett, you're the 26th best quarterback in the NFL. Go have a day.
Yeah. I mean, he did some good things with the Browns last year. Like, I think the Amari Cooper lesson to me is like the same lesson that people are going to learn with like Hollywood Brown, where it's like, no matter how bad you think things can get, talent shines through with some of these guys.
Okay.
I'm not as prepared to say that for like Mike Evans, who's just like old.
2 of them. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Like Marquise is just him.
Yeah.
Amari is just him.
I do think they have some like trade outs. Like guys I could see Rondale Moore traded to the Chiefs and like sticking that down everyone's throats. If like Sky Moore sucks, like Rondale Moore on the Chiefs would be 6th round pick, something absurd.
I did read that Mike Evans was negotiating with the Bucs on a long-term deal. I don't want that to happen. We need Mike Evans to not sign that deal and get traded to the Chiefs in week 8. That's what we need. But
He
there's
could be
been no mention of that.
They're going to see how it is. How likely do you think Baker plays the full season?
Man.
/ how bad is Kyle Trask?
Kyle Trask, I don't think Kyle Trask has it. I don't know. I don't think it matters to me. Like, I don't even know what that matters to me. I'm not drafting Baker regardless.
Well, people weren't going to draft Geno either, and I don't think it's the same. But
yeah, no, there's anything's possible with best ball. I think I would rather have
anything's possible.
I think there's a better chance that Hunter Henry's just the tight end 14 because things went well for him, and I would rather just hopefully that happens.
People are asking you if you can speak to the ADP being separate from different types of tournaments.
Just look at the slate on your rankings page. If it falls into that, it'll be the same ADP. If it's weekly winners, its own slate, that's its own ADP. Do
puppy ADPs impact BBM? No, right?
No, puppy and BBM are together. It's the same.
They are
2013 NFL slate.
Okay.
If you go to your exposures, it should be under the same. You'll have your puppy drafts in there and your BBMs. Weekly winners will be its own slate.
This is also only a 6,000 entrant, actually less contest.
Yeah, no.
So it's not going to impact BBM.
And I don't think there's that much difference.
I mean, Jameson Williams is going to free fall in this as he should.
As he should have. Yeah, that's the thing.
And so that would impact BBM, but other than that,
But really, the
all right.
funny thing about the suspensions though is it's what 10 of 12 people advance in the first couple of weeks. Really, is Jameson Williams nothing in round 11 costing you? I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm just not drafting Alvin Kamara would probably be the better example. I don't want Jameson Williams, period. But
I want him in regular best ball. I'm still on the talent is there. So he's gonna have spike weeks. I think there's a weird usage. DJ Chark is just a slam dunk at this point, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like him.
I can figure out wide receiver later. I personally I like Slayton more than Parker.
I like Chark's Parker and Slayton, so literally the same role.
Okay. You cool with Slayton over Parker?
Bye weeks that we have to be worried about, and I think we're good. Yeah. Yeah, if you like Slayton over Parker, it's fine with me.
It's a little bit of running back wide receiver correlation with the Saquon Parker. I mean, let's talk about Hyatt. How I've been reading that is I think Hyatt would most impact Paris Campbell, where it would be Slayton on the outside, Hodgins on the outside, and Campbell and Hyatt sharing the slot. Is that how you're thinking it?
So Hyatt could play flanker or the slot. He's a vertical slot. He's not your traditional slot. If he's good, it would come at the expense of all of the slot receivers, mostly Paris Campbell. If he's going to be playing the flanker role, that would be Darius Slayton. But interesting thing about Hodgins is he's the only X wide receiver. He's the big guy. So I think even if Hyatt's good, I do think it would just be Hodgins, Hyatt, and then somebody like that.
Someone screaming Chark hurt, has a hamstring injury, doesn't sound like a major one. So yeah, that's fine.
I like Hodgins the best. I drafted a lot of Slayton because he goes so late. But I like Hodgins the best. I think his role, who's coming after he's like a possession, in-breaking route, curl route, it's big-bodied red zone guy. None of the other guys on the team are that.
I I opened just getting Hodgins in every single contest.
Yeah.
And then I cooled off a little bit, starting to Slayton's getting a lot of positive buzz. I do think Waller could kind of eat into the targets 100%. That Hodgins sees. I mean, Hodgins could be cut in theory. He's making no money, but it's a little bit
there. He was an exclusive rights free agent. He couldn't. There was no negotiations.
Yeah,
it's just because I think he was undrafted and got cut. Using the salary against him is using that as if the franchise tag.
He was a 6th round pick the same year. It went Gabe Davis in the 5th and then 6th round pick. And a lot of the dynasty bros were Hodgins over Gabe. And
Gabe was a cool prospect, as early declare, very productive. He always had a chance and big. I always thought Gabe had a chance. But Hodgins, you can't use this contract. I guess you can. You can say whatever you want, but it wasn't Hodgins was I should
logical is what you're saying.
$4 million. It's no, the NFL and the CBA says you're making $830,000. We're paying you $830,000. Like, get over it.
Yeah. I like Hodgins quite a bit. And it's a little like, I mean, I don't know. The dude just like scored like 7 touchdowns in the year. And
he
like
was balling out.
Like was an essential part of the playoffs.
Yes.
I do not think the Bills would swap Hodgins and Gabe. They serve different roles. Like Hodgins is not fast.
Yeah. Gabe's interesting because Gabe's not that fast either, but he just like comes.
Yeah, Gabe's like 4.5. Hodgins is like 4.65, I think.
Yeah.
Gabe's like 4.55. We'll pull up the Raz for the nerds here. I'm a big shout out Kentley Platt. I'm a big Raz guy. Hodgins does not drop a ball, which is nice. All right, 4.6, 140, 158 10 yard. You care a lot more about the 10 yard than the 40, by the way, people, for running backs and wideouts usually. 3 cone 7.01, which is like pretty legit for a dude his size.
100%. And he was super productive at college. Like Gabe Davis, super productive as well. Both of them were like underrated prospects.
Gabe Davis, 4.54, 155 10 yard, which is like at his size is nice. 3 cone 7.08, which is like whatever.
Liam, when I was doing mine, I separated tall wide receivers and short wide receivers, just like thinking about like, all right, who's the X wide receivers in the slots? And what happened is the broad jump and the 10-yard split and the 40-yard dash became super important for the taller wide receivers. And then the 3 cone was the only thing that mattered for like the shorter wide receivers. So like we grouped them in like positionally with like our metrics and stuff, but like really like the difference between skill sets and athletic traits that's needed at slot versus the outside wide receivers like show up with like the combine, like per all my regression stuff.
That makes a lot of like I heard you say that before, and that makes so much sense to me. Like breaking down the regression based on size rather than grouping it. I grouped it, and so that's why I was just like hammering on 3 cone. Kyron Williams would have been a smash to me to pair with Stafford as an RB4. Now I might want to go 5 RB and just say we have enough at wide receiver. Chris Evans, I have some confidence in. Help me out here, Hayden. Keontae Ingram.
I like Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Okay. CEH. Do you want to go 2 RB here?
Yeah. Is there any wide receivers that we like for sure like or not really? No.
Like Deontay Hardy, but I just think we need like 4 is a little thin to me.
Okay. Yeah. Let's you pick Chris Evans. I'll do CEH.
Okay. And we need CEH because week 7, we only have Saquon and CEH.
We need him. All
right. So we finished up here with a Deshaun Watson, Matt Stafford, Sam Howell, like the group of quarterbacks. Pollard, Saquon, Pierce, Chris Evans, CEH. Obviously we need Saquon the ball week 7. It's nice that we have Pierce and Pollard for the week 13 by Apocalypse. Amari Cooper, Mike Williams, Gabe Davis, Michael Pittman, MVS, DJ Chark, Darius Slayton. So some high ADOT guys in MVS, Slayton, Chark. Pittman should get a lot of targets. Gabe Davis should have a bunch of spike weeks. Big Mike.
We need Mike to be like a legit wide receiver 1 this year, which I think is totally possible.
Oh, Mike?
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah.
Like if Mike Williams is the wide receiver 9 this year, like that wouldn't surprise me, but like that's what this team needs.
And like the Gabe reports have been incredibly positive too, plus the preseason usage, plus like that ankle injury, man.
Yeah, the splits were real, man, for Gabe and for Josh Allen. Like it was crazy to me how good the Bills were. They were like the second worst team in turnover rate. And Josh Allen was playing through injury, and Gabe Davis, who they were like desperately needed, played through injury, and they were still the second best offense in the league. Like,
and they lost Micah Hyde and Von Miller on defense, which like that defense before they lost those two dudes was like a world really different.
Good. Yeah,
Amari Cooper very safe. And then Kincaid, Njoku, Higbee. Love this group of tight ends. Some of them are going to hit the flex, so we really only probably need like 3 wide receivers each week because one of our running backs can definitely hit the flex as well. This has been a marathon. This was a lot of fun. Hayden, thank you so much for coming on. We'll have to do some more stuff in the future. Can you tell the people where they can find your stuff and really anything else you want to tell
them? While you're on YouTube, go over Underdog Fantasy Football with Josh Norris. We're doing basically a show every single day, and then we will do that during the season as well. Yeah, a lot of fun over on Underdog Network as well for my writing, and then you can follow me on Twitter at Hayden Winks. But go play weekly winners. Go give it a try. I think there's a lot of edge out there. Like seriously, like wait till BBM fills and then there's 25% left. in weekly winners, and everyone's just throwing bullets at this. You're gonna have Liam auto drafting. Like, it's a good game to like go try out right now. Go like learn it.
I won't fully auto. I would steer. What I mean by that is like I would enter like 50 at the same time and like
ranks are in place.
And like make sure I get my first 2 guys, make sure I get my rankings done, and then just try to like steer.
That would be a pretty cool video to like outline how you're doing that, just because like that will come up like from time to time, like in these tournaments. So
yeah, I mean I've done it with like a puppy before. I've done it with to golf. I did it and I got 3rd in golf. I just entered like the golf overlaid in the albatross, and I entered like 30 to 50 at the same time, and just kind of like I moved my ranks just to get unique at like the 1-2 turn and like the 3-4 in the back end, and then just kind of like steered 30 at the same time, and then just autoed the rest.
Like it.
All right, guys. Well, this has been a blast. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Matthew Berry coming on next Thursday. Pete Overzet coming on Monday. I'm doing a main event draft with Ron and Jacob Sanderson. I know there's some other guests I'm sure I'm forgetting. I'm in the works of figuring out a date with Evan Silva. So a lot of exciting things coming down the pipeline. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. Thank you to Hayden. Again, check him out on Twitter at Hayden Winks. Does a lot of great work for Underdog. Definitely check out the Underdog YouTube channel. And have a great day, guys. Drink water, hit the subscribe, hit the like. I'm going to end this broadcast, refresh it in the comment section, be like, wow, great haircut. Or write something like, love that Liam turned on his camera, so that people know in the beginning, like what a journey we've been on.
The first 5-minute retention rates are going to be tough to overcome, but we'll make it happen with the comments.
Yeah. All right. Peace out, guys.